Alright, I hope you brought your number 2 pencil and your calculator because class is in session. I'm just kidding, y'all. I hope you're excited about getting the RV soon and just wanted to put together this kind of tutorial for hitching up and all the systems and whatnot to help you get on the road when you get everything. So I'll just be real informal today and we'll start with just the hitching up process. So let me hop over here to the auto level controls. So to wake this up when you don't see the LED lit up, you're just going to tap these two up and down at the same time and you'll see it turns green, and then you can make use of all the controls here. So what I did before I hit record is I hit this hitch height button, and what that's going to do is it's going to raise all the middle and rear jacks back here. So you can see the middle jacks are raised and same with the rear, and so when you press that hitch height, that's going to raise those jacks, and then it's going to raise the nose of the fifth wheel to the last known disconnect position. You can see here how I am perfectly at the height I need to be at to hitch up. So I didn't have to hit the up and down arrows or anything. I just hit that hitch height button and it took me right up to where I needed to be. Now, if for some reason you are in the middle of an auto level or a hitch height and you cancel it, you stop it, then it's going to basically clear that hitch height memory. So if you ever come to the display and you hit hitch height and you get a, I think it's a flashing red arrow or light right here, that basically means, hey, someone cleared the memory, they canceled an operation, and for safety it kind of, you know, wipes the hitch height memory out of the system there. So you just have to manually then hold the up arrow till you get to the desired height there. And you can see we're just you know, about an inch and a half above the ball right there, so that's our proper height. All right, and then of course you got your tailgate down, you got your goose ball in there, your safety chain mounts, everything ready to go. And the only thing we're going to do on the goose box is we're going to take this coupler, you see the green and the red there, and we're going to open it up with this little lever here. So we're going to pull it and it's spring loaded, and then we're just going to use this little stop here to keep it in the unlock, the red position there, and that basically opens up the coupler so that it's ready to receive the ball. All right, then we'll hop inside the truck and I'll kind of show you my method. Now, I'm kind of old school and I like to use the little tennis ball, the magnetic tennis ball and the goose ball. And that just makes it a lot easier for me personally. And I've got a spare one. They come in packs of 2. So I'll just go ahead and give you one of them. That way you're all set. And it just magnetically sticks to your goose ball, and that way you can see what you're backing up to. All right, so we'll hop in here and you can kind of see in the back, if you look out, you can see that's kind of what I'm using to line everything up. So I watch for the antenna sticking up there, and I just center it up on the goose box. And then when I see that antenna start to tip forward, that's when I know it's making contact and you get out. And it takes a little trial and error, but you'll get it. So I'm just backing up here and I can put another display. You can see, I mean, I don't use this a whole lot, but it is there. I'm really more looking out the back, but at least you can see what I'm doing here. So I'm just going straight back, watching my antenna, and there it goes. I think I went a little bit too far that time, so I'm going to come forward just a little bit, probably right about there. All right, we're going to hop out and we'll see if we are lined up. So I'm just a little bit too far forward. I don't know if you can make that out here in the video, but just a little bit too far forward, so I'm just going to pull forward about 1.5 inches. All right, so right about there. And it helps to put your e-brake on too, obviously. There you go. So now we're perfectly lined up on it, and we're just going to go in there and retrieve our magnetic ball here. Take that off. And so before you lower down, again, you just want to make sure you're in the unlock position there, that it's open and ready to receive it. And you just want to make sure everything's all clear. We're looking good in our bed. And then, assuming this is still awake and the green light's on, you're just going to hit your down button. And as you're doing it, you're slowly watching the coupler, just making sure that it is going on. You can be, you know, maybe 1 inch at the most off of that ball, and it'll still kind of roll onto it naturally. But if you're any more than 1 inch off, I would say just, you know, recenter, because you don't want to torque the landing gear, you know, kind of stretch it or anything like that. All right, so once you're absolutely sure that it's resting on the ball, and you can see there it's fully seated on the ball, you can go ahead and release this with the handle and put it in the green, the lock position. And then once you've done that and you know it's fully seated, you can hit this retract all button here. And so that retract all is exactly what it says. It retracts every jack. So, you know, some people mistakenly will hit that button while they're not hitched up at their campsite, and literally what will happen is it'll retract the rear jacks, the middle jacks, and the front jacks in that order. And so you don't want to hit that unless you're, you know, already hitched up. If you do by accident, you can just hit one of the, I think you can hit the retract all or any of the other buttons to kind of interrupt it. And once it detects that you've interrupted, it'll stop whatever operation it's in. So, and of course you do have the instruction manual right there as well that kind of gives you some indicators. All right, so we got our jacks up. So then the rest of it is just manual. And so what we're gonna do is pull this little handle right here and then raise the jacks up. And you'll notice when you go down, you'll notice that I've added a little Sharpie line right there, and that tells me what hole is my last hole that I want to be in. So you just go all the way up. I'm trying to do it one-handed here. A little bit hard, but yeah, you get the idea. So I'm gonna unhitch it for you in just a second, so I'll leave it there. But basically you just raise these jacks up all the way so they, you know, aren't sticking down like that. All right, so that's your jacks and everything. And then you just got your safety chains back here. You know, everything's got a place here, so you just unhook your safety chains, and then you're gonna hook it around your safety chain mount there. And then you've got this breakaway cable, and that's for the emergency brakes if everything came undone. And that actually needs to go to the safety chain mount and not the chains, even though it's a little easier to hook it to here. So I didn't fully seat it, you can see, but that's where it should be going. And then your last one's going to be your 7-way electrical. So it's got a little holder up there, and you're just going to hook that into your 7-way on your truck. I always pull, you know, of course on here, don't pull on the cable itself. That way it doesn't come undone. All right, so then you're all set. So I just double check and make sure I've got my safety chains, my breakaway cable, my 7-way. I didn't do the other safety chain over there just for demonstration, but you want to get that one too. Make sure you are in the green position there. And then if you want to go ahead and lock it with the little padlock there, now would be the time to do it. And that's going to be right there. You'll see it just below the shocks where you'll unlock. But while we're hitched up, let me just hop inside and show you the camera system, so you can get an idea of what that looks like. All right, so it's got this little Furrion display here, and it only comes on when you have the running lights on. That's kind of how a lot of the brands do it. So if I just flip on my running lights here on the truck, then you'll see it wakes up. So basically the 12-volt power for the camera on the RV is connected directly to the same circuit as the running lights in the back there. And so once you turn those on, it comes on there. So you can see it gives you a lot nicer view out the back, and really it's nice. And you can drive with it the whole time. It's an observation style. So when you're turning and changing lanes and whatnot, you can kind of get an idea of where cars are so you don't clip them or anything. So that's pretty straightforward. There is audio on there too. We don't really use that a whole lot, but it does have a volume control, and it's kind of handy if you want to have someone directing you in the back and hear them, you know, through the front. It's just one-way audio. All right, so that's that. And then let me show you the TPMS right away. Okay, so this is the Bluetooth receiver for the TPMS. So basically there's a booster in the front storage bay, and I'll show you that, but it basically goes from that booster to this receiver right here, and then you just pair it to your phone from there. So let me open up my phone, and I've got the TireMinder app. Here it is. All right, so you can see it's connecting, and then there we go. And I think if I remember right, the TPMS sensors on the tires, they kind of go to sleep to save battery, so they wake up when the tires start moving. So all that to say, you might, you know, depending on when this was last synced up or when it last recorded a reading, you might, you know, you see right here it says 55 degrees. Well, it's 86 degrees outside, so I know that's not the case. But that's basically just because the tires aren't moving. So just keep that in mind. But typically, you know, they're rated for 110, and because we're not full, they're, you know, overrated for the rig. You know, usually I run them at about 100 to 105, just kind of depending on how full the rig is. Basically, the less pressure you put in it, the less weight they'll carry. The more pressure you put in it, the more weight, but then the more rigid and stiff the ride is. And since, you know, we can't exceed the weight limit of the tires anyway, because they're overrated for the fifth wheel, you know, 105 seems to be about the right spot there. You definitely don't want to underinflate, because that's where a lot of people get blowouts when they underinflate. So, you know, I definitely would be real vigilant in checking the tire pressure. And then once you start getting on the road and moving, especially if it's hot outside, it's not uncommon to see that, you know, if it starts out at 100, to jump up to 110, 115. You know, the cold PSI is what we're looking at. And so you always want to check that at the beginning of your trip before you start moving, because it will start to rise quite a bit when you're going down the road and building up heat there. So I look at the PSI, and then I also look at the temperature. And basically I'm just watching for a tire that's maybe out of range, you know, so they should all be functioning about the same. Sometimes you'll notice the side that hits the sun gets a little warmer than the side that's in the shade, but you shouldn't see a 10-degree difference between, you know, one tire and the next. Same on the PSI. They should all be within, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 PSI of each other. If you start to see one going out of range, then you know there might be a problem. You might want to just pull over and, you know, check, make sure everything's good to go there. So, all right, so that's, I think, everything inside. So we'll go ahead and unhitch. We'll show you that outside again. Okay, so the reverse process is we've got our jacks down already, the manual position at least. And then we're gonna go ahead and open up the coupler. And so we just use that bar there and pull it open to the red position, the unlocked, and then we're gonna take our breakaway cable and our safety chain. That's got a little spot up there, a little hole to go into. And then of course our 7-way connector. I'll wiggle that out, and that's got a spot up here. Holds it nice and firm. There we go. Okay, and let's see. Oh, I know one other thing to mention here on the Reese Goose Box. Let me zoom in here. So the little viewport, that little circle above the Reese logo, is where the airbag indicator is. There's a little flat black, I don't know if it's showing up here. Let's see if I can get a better view there. Well, I guess it's I don't know if you can see that, but there is a flat black bar that's supposed to run straight, kind of diagonal across the middle, and that indicates if the airbag is to the proper inflation, you know, based on your pin weight, on how heavy the nose of the fifth wheel is. So I can see it in person, but I just don't know if you're able to see it in the video, but that basically should be in the halfway point. So if it's not, what you're going to want to do is use this Schrader valve right here to fill it up. And I just keep one of these inexpensive Ryobi 18-volt inflators, you know, so if you have Ryobi tools already, you can just get this at Home Depot. I think it's, maybe 25, 30 bucks at the most. And then if you have a battery already, you just plug that in, and this is one of the smaller cheap batteries, and it works just fine. But this is nice because you just hook this up to the Schrader valve and then use that to fill up the airbag, and it's, you know, it's just like a bicycle pump basically. So I definitely recommend that. But that is it otherwise on the Reese Goose Box. So we are in the open position now. We're disconnected on our safety chains and everything, so now we can raise it. So we're gonna go back to our leveling system, and of course you wanna make sure you're chalked. You know, I've got all four wheels chalked already, so definitely do that first. And we're just gonna go back and wake it up, so we hit both up and down. There it goes. And then we're gonna hold down the up arrow, and then you can see the jacks are starting to come down out of their position there. All right, so most of the time you're gonna be unhitching on level ground. Every once in a while you might be a little bit off side to side if the terrain is graded maybe. So you might see that one side touches down before the other. Not a big deal. If it's really extreme and, you know, you're 2 or 3 inches, you might want to either put some blocks down or change the height on the manual adjustment there so that you're more even side to side. And then you can see here what's going on. So when you go up, first you're going to notice the suspension on the Goose Box change as it alleviates all that pressure, all that weight. And then you're going to notice once you're clear of the goose ball, see if I can focus that better for you. There you go. Then you can kind of see how high we want to be. So I usually give myself about 1 inch. There's that little grease zerk that kind of sticks down just a little bit further there, and that is for greasing, by the way. You can also just take your put a glove on and then take the, I think I sent you a link for the Reese lubrication there for the ball. But basically, if you lube it up once a month, maybe in your case. I do it before every trip, but we're not as frequent as y'all probably be. So just so that you see grease on the ball. If you don't, you'll hear all kinds of squeaking, and it's just not very pleasant. So make sure it's nice and greased up there. All right, so that's hitching up. So then once you're all clear, I always just make sure before I pull the truck forward that I'm all clear everywhere, that there's nothing that's going to catch. Make sure your chains and your 7-way cable are stowed away properly up there. And then we're going to pull forward, and we should be all ready to go through the rest. All right, so we'll pull forward. You'll notice it disconnected the camera because we pulled the 7-way. All right, so we're all clear now. Go ahead and shut this off, and we'll finish our tutorial here. Okay, oops, I think we'll pull forward quite enough. So this is not good what I just did here. You can see that I'm a little bit above the tailgate, and when I push the auto level button here in a second, depending on our terrain, it might drop that down to the point where it squashes my tailgate. So don't do what I just did. Make sure you pull forward far enough. Make sure that your truck rails, everything's clear, because sometimes visually things look like you got plenty of clearance, and then you hit that auto level button and you find out that you're not quite as clear. All right, there we go. That's better. All right, so then usually first thing I do when I get to my campsite is go ahead and auto level it. So we're green ready. If it wasn't, we just wake it up with the 2 buttons, and we just push that auto level, and then it's going to start flashing, and that indicates that it's starting to process the terrain and the levelness and everything. And typically what you're going to see is you'll see these front jacks do their thing first, and then usually I think it goes to the rear jacks all the way in the back, and then it's going to go to your middle. So that's kind of the typical order. I haven't had any issues with the auto level. I mean, it's tried and tested. It's on so many fifth wheels out there. There's basically the electric version here, and then the hydraulic, and the electric is way more common. So have not had any issues with it. Every once in a while, if you're on terrain that's just too uneven for it to deal with, it'll give you some feedback, and it'll flash, I think, red, and it'll say on the inside display, it'll say out of stroke, or too many degrees out of alignment or something, to give you an indicator. So I've never had a problem with it giving me error codes that weren't logical and that weren't explainable. But you can see here it's going off to the back here and lowering those down. Of course, you want to make sure the pads are clear underneath, that there's no cords, no big rocks or anything that would cause it to not rest evenly there. And it's basically just going side to side now and leveling it. Of course, it doesn't have to work too hard here because it's already level, but that's how it works. If for some reason you're doing it and the auto level stops, midway in, and you feel like it just didn't quite get it there, then I would go back to the display and just see, is it still flashing green? Because when it's flashing green, that means it's still working. Or is it red, or is it another color? And then you'll go inside, and I'll show you that later, to the display in there. So, all right, so that's the auto level system. While that's finishing up, we'll go ahead and go into this center storage compartment. Let me hook it up here. There's a little hook up there for it to rest on. So we've got our big storage compartment here, and I'll just show you real quick. This is that little switch I added for the lights. So the first switch is going to be your lights up there in the storage bay. Just makes it a lot easier to see stuff in here. And then your second switch is going to be for the outside motion light. And it's got 2 modes. So it's off right now. If we turn it on, you can see it's got the blue, and I forget which is which, but basically one of them indicates it's in the auto mode, where it's going to turn on at dusk with motion, And if you switch it the other way, okay, so if you switch it twice, it just stays on. All right, so remember, once is the auto mode, twice is the permanently on function. So when it's blue like that, it's in the auto function. All right, I think it changes to green at nighttime there. And you can change, I think, how long and all that if you wanted to behind the display there. All right, so that's that. And then over here, you've got the booster. You can hear it's starting to finish up here in the front, fine tuning it. But this is the booster for the tire pressure monitor. So basically what happens, each tire has a cap on it that has a sensor, just like a tire pressure cap, just a bigger version, and then it communicates to here. And usually you need a booster on them just to make sure it gets all the way to your truck. So that's what that is. And that just stays on all the time. It's wired into the 12-volt system on the rig. So it's always going to be on if your rig is turned on. All right. So if anything ever went wrong with the TPMS, I would check this to make sure you're green first. But never had any issues there. All right, so then of course you got your jacks here. They're gonna look the same in the middle too, just a condensed version. And then up here on the ceiling, you've got all the controls for the auto level. So again, I've never had any problems with it, but if you did, this is probably the first place I would go to and check your fuses and make sure that everything there is, good, that none of the wires got tugged. You want to be careful putting things in storage here, that there's nothing up here that could hook and then pull down on those wires there. So but that is all your auto level stuff right up there, and then your other jack as well. All right, then this compartment is sealed up. There used to be a battery box right here, but I just took a piece of sheet metal and covered it up and siliconed it into place and everything and painted it, so I mean it looks like it's all original there. But I did seal this compartment up just because a lot of times there's cracks around these jacks and along the wall, and when you're driving down you get all kinds of road debris and grime up in here. So that's kind of nice. So it is all sealed up now. All right, so I think that's about everything in the storage compartment up here. This was where the battery vent used to be, but of course we don't need that anymore. So that hose is just kind of tucked up there out of the way in case someone needs to use it in the future, but it's not doing anything right now. All right, and then of course you got your spare tire underneath there with the cover on there, and it's just got two lag bolts, or 2 bolts rather, that are holding it up on there. Okay, kind of move around the side here, show you the propane. So you got two 30-pound tanks here, and it's got an auto changeover on it as well. So most of the time when we're out camping, I'll fill both of them up to the max and then just kind of keep an eye on it. But basically the way this changeover works, you can see it's got a little arrow on here, an indicator that it's going to start on this tank over here, whereas if I move it to this side, it's going to start on this tank here. So it just, maybe you have one tank that's empty and one tank that's full, then you can tell it, hey, I want to start on this tank, and when that tank runs out, it's going to switch over to the other. Now this doesn't physically move like that, it just inside has a mechanism that's mechanical that switches over. So if you come here and this tank is empty but you still got propane, it's just because of the changeover function rolled over for you. All right, so that's what that is. Then it does have the little propane gauge, the Bluetooth one that I added there. So let me show you here on the phone. Let's see, here's the app here. It's called Tank Check here. Okay, so this is all Bluetooth, and I think if I understand it right, it communicates directly from the sensors that are on the bottom of the tank to the app. There's also a display inside, but I'm pretty sure it goes directly to the phone and not to the display there and then to the phone. So you can see you've got 80% on one tank and 100% on the other. So, and it's labeled left and right, so you got left and right just like you'd expect. Now the bad news is I think you're gonna have to set this up on your phone, and you do have to pull the tanks out because the sensor's on the bottom. It's like a magnet that sticks to the bottom, and then I think it's some kind of, I don't know, like sonar or something that pulses up and detects how full the tank is. So you're gonna have to pair that to your phone. So that will be a little bit of a process because you'll have to undo the mount up here to get to the bottom. And then you'll also notice these little aluminum clips here, And basically what that is it's to raise up the tanks enough to let that sensor sit on the bottom of the tank in there. So these are a little bit fragile. I don't think I've had any break on me, but they're aluminum, so they're kind of, you know, a little bit brittle. So you just kind of tap them onto the bottom of the tank, and then that kind of raises it up. I want to say I saw somewhere where they're making them out of rubber now, you know, so you don't have to worry about that. But just be careful when you're, you know, loading and unloading that those clips don't break off there for you. But there are two of them, one on each tank on the bottom, and I think you just maybe hold the learn button on it or something while your phone is on, and it, you know, syncs up. And then once it's synced, you're good. You don't have to ever do it again. So that is that. You can take them anywhere to get them filled up. They, I think, generally say the tanks need to be 10 years old or newer, and so these are obviously, what, about 2 years old roughly. There's a date on them somewhere, but no problem to fill them up anywhere. Otherwise, you just screw on this hand tight, you know, just like a barbecue grill, and then open up your valves up there. And, you know, some people will tell you not to travel with your propane turned on. And if you have a propane fridge, then that's kind of a problem because you want to keep your food cold. But here, you don't have to worry about that. So, you know, typically I shut the propane off when I'm traveling just because there's nothing running on propane, and so, you know, why you know, risk something happening? So then you can just go up to your valves and shut them off, and then you'll be good to go. I'll leave that one on so I can show you the gas later, but I will shut them off before the transporter comes and gets it. All right, I think that's everything in the propane bay there. It's got two little manual locks. You know, I debated about putting a lock on one of these, but I think the code is you can't have a keyed lock on your propane for safety. You know, that if somebody had to get in there and shut it off, they don't want someone to be fumbling for keys. So that's what that is there. All right, we'll go ahead and go to this bay here. All right, so let's see. The electrical cord is already hooked up. So I think you've probably seen that before, but you just feed the cord into the little slot here, and you're gonna feed the part that hooks to the RV in here first, usually. That's what I do, at least. So you'll feed that in there, and then what I do is I take one hand with a towel or rag in my hand and kind of right here, and I'm holding the rag around the cord. And then I take my other hand and I start turning with the crank back here. So as I'm turning, the rag is wiping down the cord. You know, the cord gets just covered in sand and grime and stuff. So every time you wheel it in, you're just getting rid of all that before it gets into the reel, and it just keeps everything a lot cleaner. So, all right, and then you got your water here as well. So I got two hoses for you. This one is probably one of my favorites right here that I've ever bought. It's a 0G, and it's an RV version of it, and it's blue, and as far as I understand, they're the same as the household. There's nothing special about the inside. They're all, you know, drinking water safe, but they color it blue anyway. And since we don't have an RV right away, I figure might as well give you this one. They're kind of hard to get right now with supply, and so figured y'all could make use of it, and I'll be able to find one eventually. But they're really nice. So this is a 25-foot long cable, and then there's another 25-footer back here, and that's also an RV, you know, drinking safe hose as well. So, you know, maybe once a year I'll have to pull out both hoses, but most of the time it's just the one. And you can see here I generally just leave it hooked up to the water the whole time, and then I'm just unreeling from the hose, feeding it down through my little slot here, and then to my campsite water hookup. And then I'll show you a couple other little things in here. So this is kind of nice. I figured that this would be helpful for y'all getting started. I usually put this on the campsite water spigot. So then I've got one side for my drinking water for my blue hose here, and then this side is for the sewer, the black tank flush. And I put this little backflow preventer. It's not necessary because there's technically one on a better one, an air gap that's inside. I'll show you that later. But this just, you know, for me is peace of mind. That way I know if there's any possibility of anything being in that, you know, black tank flush hose, it's not going to get back into your water and then come through the other side. But this way, if you're staying somewhere for a while, you don't have to unhook and hook your, you know, drinking hose up when you want to flush your black tank out. So that's kind of a nice little accessory to have. And then of course you can shut the valves off as well there. All right, then you've got your water filter wrench there, so you just kind of slip that up under there, and you could almost hand tighten it, but they do give you the wrench there to kind of get it started. And this container just kind of fits nicely in here, so I figured y'all could make use of it. Then you got your hose, of course, here. This is the same one that you're going to use on the other side, and it basically just has like a spring loaded valve in here, and so you just kind of twist it like that, and you'll see it kind of pops out. So you'll see it's got a, I don't know if you can see that on the video, but 2 little notches on either side. And you just have to line those up with the notches on the thing and then twist it at the same time, and then it's locked in there and you're good to go. So then you got hot and cold you can use right there. All right, so that's that. Of course, you don't have to have any outside pressure reducing valve. All that's done inside, so you're good to go there. All right, and what else? Okay, so there's your black tank flush. And then here I added a switch for the water pump so that, you know, there's already one inside the rig, and I'll show you that later. But what if you're all packed up and you just want to use this spray port out here to wash your hands or do something, and you don't want to have to go back in the rig and shut the water pump off. So this gives you the ability to shut it off from the outside here in this bay. So that's kind of nice. It's not a true 3-way switch like you'd have in your house at a stairwell. You know, it's basically an inline switch. So in other words, this switch has to be on in order for the switch inside the rig to work as well. So if you go inside the rig and you turn on your water pump and nothing happens, it's because this switch is on the off position. So that's the only downside about it, but for me, you know, having that extra switch is just a nice touch. And it does light up red, so that you know that you're turned on. So I usually leave it on that on position there. All right, so that is that. And then you've got a motion light here, a GFI outlet there, and then this is for when you're winterizing and you want to flush in antifreeze. And again, I never did it because I just kept it all hooked up year round, but you would flip this up and that would keep the water, the antifreeze, from going into your water heater, because you don't want to do that. And this is the inlet there. It just kind of stows away in there. It's I don't know, maybe a 36-inch hose or so, but it just kind of stows in there. And then you've got another inlet here as well for the antifreeze, and I think it tells you there, yeah, it says close the valve on the tank, open the valve to the inlet, and that way you know what's going on there. So all right, and then you got your satellite and cable TV hookup there, and those feed to different jacks on the inside. Didn't really use those a whole lot, but they are there to use. All right, I think we covered everything up in here. This is all silicone, you know, along here, so that if water and stuff gets in here, you know, it's not a big deal, but I try to keep a towel handy just to wipe things down. Oh, I know what I forgot. So these little brass valves here, I figured these would help y'all out, and they're easy for me to replace, but it's basically like a 45-degree angle so that your hose is not, you know, coming out and then getting kinked down. And so I like to have those, and then I like that these have a little valve on them, so you can, when you're unhooking for whatever reason, maybe you're cleaning this out, you don't have any, if there's any residual water in your city water connection, it doesn't spill out. You know, sometimes you'll get, you know, just a little bit of water that spills out, so you can shut that valve off right there and then not have to worry about that. Same thing over here on your fresh water for your tank there. And then I also thought this might be helpful for y'all. This just kind of tells you how many gallons are flowing through here. So if you're filling up your fresh water and you're wondering, you know, how many gallons have I put in, you can use that, and it's like a counter, like a water meter that keeps up with it. All right. So I think that's everything inside there. Then you got some electrical adapters. I think y'all had asked about those. So this one here is what I use when I'm at the house in storage here. And so this one connects directly to the wall back there, and then it's got a 110 on the end. So here we're going from 50 amp to just regular 15 amp power. So you can't run your air conditioner off this, but you can run, you know, pretty much everything else will work there. Then you've got your, let's see here, we've got a 50 amp to a 30 amp, a 3-prong connection. And then we've got another 50 amp to 110 to 15 amp, just a different version. So this would be if you wanted to actually use the 50 amp cord that comes with it and then plug in directly to a wall. Whereas this one here, I kind of like, because you can plug straight in and then get your own extension cord and plug in to household power 110. So Basically same thing, just 2 different ways to get there. And then this is a 50 amp to generator adapter. So if y'all ever got a little portable generator or something, you know, I would look for one that has this double-sided four-way connector on it that you kind of insert and twist and lock it into place, and that way you can actually carry through here. I think it's pretty close to 50 amps if I'm not mistaken. I mean, of course, depends on your generator if it's capable of it. But I had a Honda, what was it, a ES 7000, I think it was, that carried 240 volts through here and could power everything with no issues. So that's all your connectors there. And then of course you do have a surge for the 50 amp out there. I'll show you later. Okay, so that's all that stuff there. All right, let's talk about our sewer connection. So right now it is hooked up to the sewer, but you've got your little storage here, and that's where that hose right over there goes. And I'd say 95% of the time that's the only hose that you're going to need for the sewer. I think that goes up to 15 feet if I'm not mistaken. It's either 10 or 15, but almost always I can get away with just this one hose, the way it collapses. And then there are 2 more shorter sewer hoses. I think they're maybe 5 foot each. It's either 2 5s or 1 10 that's in the back bumper, so that'll be for y'all to use as well. Then down here, just show you real quick, this is the black tank flush hose that I was talking about, and it's just a basic never kink garden hose, nothing fancy about it. And I never, of course, mix those hoses up. I never use this for drinking, even though there's a air gap and everything, just to be on the safe side. And then here's just a bunch of little adapters that go with this is the Camco Rhino system, and in my experience it's really the best one out there, and it's not the most expensive, but it's, I think, just as good if not better than some of those other ones. But you got all these different adapters here. So a lot of times what'll happen is when you disconnect here at your sewer, you're going to be disconnecting this elbow from this base, this bottom piece. And the reason you do that is so that you can store this with the rest of the hose in the storage container. Because if you try to store this, it's not going to fit in your hole over here, because you can see it's not big enough to fit that. And same thing in the bumper storage. So basically you just twist this. See if I can do it one-handed. There you go. So you just twist that off, of course, after you dump your hose completely, and then you'll use that. And you can see it's got a little gasket on there as well to make a nice watertight connection. So, and then as far as these hoses themselves, they kind of tighten with this little collar around here, and so you'll see it has an arrow that says lock, and you just lock it. But I've never had issues with these leaking. You might want to periodically make sure they are in the lock position there. All right, so that's kind of connecting and disconnecting. Then you've got here, I like to keep these clear 45-degree elbows so that you can see what's going on. It's really helpful to tell what's going on, how much is left in the tanks that's draining, or when it's done. So I just leave this on even when I'm in transit. So this is where I disconnect right here, just by twisting right here. And usually I put on gloves and everything, but this has all been sprayed down with Clorox, so it's nice and clean now. But yeah, just disconnect it from right there, and then take your cap and put it back onto the clear side there. And that's how I leave it. So even though it sticks out just maybe 3 inches off the rig, I've never had any issues. I mean, it's really not that much further than the fender trim there. So that's how I do it. And then I just store that hose in the storage. All right, as far as your gray tanks go, you can see real clearly here the gray tanks come out of the underbelly right there, and on both sides. So you've got right back here, you've got your bath gray tank that's feeding in, and then you've got your galley gray tank right there that's feeding in. And then this is just like a guillotine lever basically. So inside there it just shuts and closes that valve up. Same thing on this side, just shuts, and then it opens it up, and that's it. Then you've got your black tank tucked up back here. So those valves you can see, I mean, they're right there in front of you. This black tank one is actually a cable driven valve, and so the valve is in the underbelly there, and there's a cable attached to the other side, on the other side of the frame there, and so then you just pull on that to open up the black tank. All right, now I think one time I remember it felt like it was sticking after I first got it, and so I think what I did is I just took off these nuts and sprayed a bunch of lubrication in there, and then it's ever since then worked just fine. So if it ever feels like it's sticking for you and you know, not pulling, definitely don't force it. Just undo those two nuts there, and basically they just cut a frame in the hole in the frame right here, and then added this L piece to kind of close it up and make it tighter. But basically just spray a bunch of lubrication back in there to make sure that cable is properly lubricated. And I think when I first got it, the handle was actually busted. I think it probably got hit in transit or in the factory, so I had to replace that. But it's just a basic handle, pretty easy to get, and it just screws on there. So if you ever come back here and you don't see a handle, don't panic. It's real easy to fix that. All right, and then typically, you probably know this already, but you'll do your black tank first, and then do your gray tanks after that. And that's just, you know, practically so you can kind of flush your hoses and everything else with cleaner gray water, as opposed to having the last thing be the black water, the black tank. So good practice to do that. All right, so that's about it on the sewer stuff. So all this stuff is going to come with it. This is, of course, if you're, you know, staying somewhere longer and maybe you need some help getting the gravity of your hose pitched right to go into the drain, then you can, you know, set that all up. You've probably seen that before, but most of the time I don't even use that, you know. But I figure with y'all staying longer at places, perhaps that might be helpful if you ever need it. So all right, so you got all those adapters in there to use. All right, and let's look at the water heater real quick. So it just has a little, I think you saw that, but a little thing here you just twist, and then it just kind of folds on down. It's not like a hinge, it's kind of like a cover. It has two pegs down there, so it'll give a little bit and enough to get your hand in here, but if you really need to get in here, you can just lift it off. All right, so you've got an on-off switch. That's the most important thing you need to know, and that's for the electrical element. So the propane element you're going to control inside on the control panel, but the electrical is done out here. So most of the time when we're camping places and then we go back home, you know, I'm bringing it back to storage here, so I turn it off while we're on the road. But it's, you know, it's 120 volt power, so there's no harm done leaving it on. Just note that whenever you get to your next stop, if you plug in, it's going to be on right away. And you want to make sure you've got water in your hot water tank. If for whatever reason you drained it, you know, over the winter or something like that. Don't know that that'll apply to y'all. What else? Let's see, you've got your reset button on the burner there. Never had to use that, but it is there. And then of course you've got your drain plug down here that you can drain the whole tank if you winterize. And then up here is your kind of your pressure release valve. So if you are draining it, you're going to lift up on this to release the pressure, and you'll probably see some dribble out there. And then if this is open, it'll all flow out of there. All right, so pretty straightforward on that. Your water tank there. All right, what else on the side? Let's see, you've got your vent up here for the hood that's over the oven, the stove. And it does have two little things that kind of clip in there that you can see that open up. So when you get to your campsite, you just want to make sure that's open, and then during transit you can push it down. But you know, sometimes I've forgotten to close that up, and it really, I mean, it's protected here, so other than maybe air getting into your rig, you know, there's really no harm done. It's not going to be flapping around or anything like that. So okay, let's see what else. You got a little hole here on the side, and that would be for manually retracting or extending the slides if something went wrong in the motor. I've never needed that on any rig, this one or any other rig in the past, but that's what that's there for. And it just basically goes to I think it's like a hex, if I'm not mistaken, a hex ratchet on the other side, basically, where you would connect and ratchet it out. But like I said, never needed that there. All right, let's see, coming down the line here, this is your furnace outlet, and so it's going to get hot when your furnace is there. Some rigs have a outside accessible panel where you'll see like a big black panel out here, whereas this one's accessible from the inside. So it's kind of nice that you can work on it from the inside if you ever had to. And you know, never had any issues with the furnace either. Works great. Just make sure these do stay clear. Sometimes people complain about like wasp and mud daubers getting up in here and building nests, but you know, just keep an eye on it. You can get little screens and stuff to cover that, but I just keep an eye on it, and I've never had a problem here with that. All right, let's see what else. You got you can see the little TPMS sensors on your tires. And so if you wanted to wake them up, one little trick that I learned that I think pretty sure works is if you just unscrew them a little bit and you hear that little tss, and then screw them back, usually that wakes up the sensor to check your tire pressure there. All right, so again, they're rated a maximum of 110, and I run them, 105 is my typical PSI on there that I'd recommend. No harm going all the way to 110, but with the weight, just not necessary. All right, then you've got your suspension back in there and all your zerks for greasing them up there. So each one of these, they call them wet bolts because they have the zerks on them, and so you can grease those up with just a standard zerk fitting. And that just kind of helps keep everything moving freely and flexing, and so you don't have squeaks. If you're ever in a campground and you hear somebody driving by and it's just squeaking left and right, it's because they just haven't greased up their stuff there. All right, and this is basically an equalizer, and so it's going to travel from side to side, and so you might notice sometimes it's not always centered up. We're on flat ground now, so it's centered up, but if you're ever on angled ground, you might notice that it's kind of cockeyed and leaning to one side or the other, and that's normal because it's just equalizing between the two wheels there. All right, so that's, I think, everything you need to know there. Let's see, coming back, here's of course your 50 amp, and you just kind of unscrew this collar here, and that's more or less just to seal out the water, and then you twist it. So you're going to twist it like that and then pull it out. And so I'm going to leave it hooked up because we're going to go inside here in just a minute. But you'll notice that when it's twisted and connected properly, it's perpendicular to the ground here. So I remember one time I came back and plugged it in, and I was only what was it? I think I wasn't charging my battery or something. I thought, oh no, the converter went bad or something. And what happened is, this is basically two legs of 120 volt going into the unit. What happened is I didn't turn this all the way full to the perpendicular position, and so only half of the rig was getting power at the time. So just make sure it always is pointing down perpendicular to the ground to make sure it's fully engaged there, and then turn that collar to keep the water out. All right, and you got your rear jack back there, and then your bedroom slide. Let's see, what else is important? Let's talk about sealing a little bit while we're back here. So you'll want to periodically check your seals. And like I came back just before I listed it for sale, and I noticed along this bottom skirt panel that there needed to be a little more sealant there. So I just kind of touched all that up there. And then sometimes you'll check along here where the slide trim meets your fiberglass, and sometimes things flex a little bit, and over time you just have to add a little bit. So just check everywhere periodically, all the way going up the sides. The windows, you'll want to check those as well. You'll notice on the windows they only do the top and down the sides about maybe a third of the way, and that's so that if any water would get up in there, that it has a place to escape. So you don't want to seal up the bottom of your windows, and you'll notice that. See if I can zoom into this one up here so you can kind of see that. You'll see that silicone stops there at the top, so that is normal. But yeah, definitely check your seals every once in a while, and just make sure that there's nowhere that needs to be resealed up. I just keep a disposable tube with me at all times, just in case we're somewhere and I notice something that needs to be sealed up. But basically anywhere the fiberglass hits any of the frame openings, any of the metal, the transitions, all that stuff, pretty much everything except for the roof. The roof is going to be Dicor sealant, like self-leveling sealant there. All right, let's see. Anything else in the back here? Your bumper storage where the sewer hoses are. And then I'll take my plate off here, but there are stainless steel lock nuts on them, so that's kind of nice. So you don't have to worry about it falling off, vibrating off, or anything there. And then of course you got your camera back there as well. All right, let me hop over to the front and see our batteries. Might have to swap batteries at some point, but if we do, I'll just start up again. All right, so this side we've got our battery bank here. Let me grab the keys, by the way. Speaking of keys, you got a whole bunch of them. Every time I ordered locks, they would send me more keys. So So you've got a whole bunch of keys that'll come with it. So you got your battery bank right there, 100 amp hours. You probably are familiar with that. It's going to be your Victron shunt there that monitors your battery and everything. And what else? You got your solar port down here. There is a fuse right here. I believe it's this one that you need to have a fuse in there if you ever decided to plug a solar panel in. So if you plug a solar panel in right now, nothing's going to happen. You just have to put a, like a 15 amp fuse in there. But otherwise, all this is, it's set and done. You don't have to mess with anything in here. There's really nothing in here to tend to. It's all kind of takes care of itself. And that's that other vent that, again, we don't use anymore, but it is still there. All right, you got motion light in here as well. And then this switch down here is going to be your front cap light. So when you switch that on, and come over here to the front, you can see this little light strip on the bottom. Kind of useful at nighttime if you want to light things up there. All right, so that's that switch there. And then this is your battery disconnect. So if we switch this off, that's gonna disconnect your battery. Now you'll notice that it doesn't shut everything off. Like this light here that's in the storage bay stays on. But pretty much everything else, I think even the jacks, let me double check here, make sure I'm telling you right. Oh, so actually the jacks are still connected. Yeah, and that's kind of typical. They'll do everything but your jacks and your lights in the storage bay. But I don't think y'all will be making use of that, living in it full time. So nothing to worry about there. If you did want to turn these lights on instead of being motion to just on always, you just flip it to the one position instead of the two. Then you got your slide tray here. You just lift up on that and then pull out. And it's super nice to be able to put all your stuff in there. All right, then you got your little panel here. I added this as an access panel just to make it easy to shut off the spray port. So it's kind of like a hose bib on your house where you have a shut off inside usually. So I did this just as a feature to have, so you can shut it on and off. And it might actually be helpful for y'all if you're camping in a colder climate to be able to shut that off and then not have to worry about it because it goes underneath. And I can show you real quick what that looks like. It's been insulated, you can see, with foam and everything, but probably not a bad idea to shut it off in the wintertime if it's going to be freezing. And then you also have your slide controls, and these are for the Schwintek slides that are in the front living room. So never had any issues with these, but if you did, they have some diagnostic lights in here, and that kind of tells you what's going on. But basically this is the brains that sync up all the motors on those Schwintek slides. And I'll talk about that a little bit more when we get inside. And there's another one up in back here. So you got two, one for each side. So that's that. All right, and this is basically your, right up to your steps right here inside is what that is. All right, and then that's your crank for the manual slides. If you ever had to do that, that's what that is. Okay, and then you just got the back side of your wet bay over there. All right, pretty straightforward in there. Then you've got your spray port, like I mentioned there, same as the other side. Just be careful that this clips into place. You don't want it flapping down the road because it might fall off, so make sure it firmly clips into place like that. All right, going down the side here, this is hooked up to your GFI circuit. And I do remember that I did have issues where the cable that feeds this under the slide, they didn't make it long enough, and so it was getting pinched when it would go shut. I don't know if you can see that, but basically, every slide has cabling that kind of runs through it, and the manufacturer made it a little short such that it would get pinched. And so I just remember the GFI circuit was always tripping, and I finally discovered it was because it was getting pinched on that one. So I extended it, soldered everything together, so it should be a permanent, fix that never represents itself. But that's just a side note to mention there. And then you've got a cable jack here. This is the same mount that's in the bedroom. So if you wanted to pull that TV out and watch outside, that's where you put it there. All right, going down the side, same thing on the tires and everything on this side, nothing different here. And then going down the side, yeah, nothing really different on this side as well. And then your ladder going up there is where the cell booster antenna is. And initially I had it higher up, the cell booster antenna, but I was concerned that, you know, driving down the road, if there was a tree branch or something, it's kind of like a lone thing sticking up there and it might get busted. So I lowered it to be more protected kind of by the ladder there, because it is, you know, a little more fragile. So, all right. Well, let me change batteries out here and then I'll hop inside. I think that's pretty much everything on the outside that I need to show you. The let's see, I guess I can show you the lock real quick. So there is an app for that, you probably know, and I will set it to the default code, but basically you just open it up on your phone and then it connects through Bluetooth and you can lock and unlock it, you know, either proximity entry or on the phone here. So that's definitely a nice feature, but I'll make sure I get you that code and everything. And then if you want to lock the door, you just push the 7, 8 and the BP together and then that locks it for you. All right, let me change out batteries and we'll go on inside. All right, so we'll continue on to the inside here. We're just gonna open this handle up here. Just kind of lifts up out of that little groove and folds open. And then the steps, they are kept in place by this yellow clasp here. So you can see as I flex this, it kind of retracts those little feet and those little pins that go in there to lock it. So that's what that is there. You wanna make sure that the door is all the way open when you take the steps out, because it will hit the screen in the side of the door if you don't. So make sure it is all the way open. And then you can usually do it one-handed. It's not too bad. Just make sure you got a good grip on it. You just let it down, just like that. And then you've got the pin in the side to adjust your height there. You know, you want it to be level. You want to make sure that it's not kissing the skirt panel here. You can see it's got a gap for my finger to go into. So you don't want that to be closed up where it's pushing into your skirt, because it'll just dent the skirt. And you'll notice because it won't be level. You know, you'll step on it and it'll feel slanted. So, all right, so I usually open up both steps before I start pushing slides out, especially if you've got some items maybe on the floor. You want to make sure nothing's slid, so that when you open this slide, if there's a, you know, like a tomato or something that rolled over here and then you open that slide, it'll squash it. So I just double check, make sure everything's clear. You'll notice you can get to the fridge and everything just with this one door open and the slides shut, so that's really a nice bonus. We really like that. But you're going to go over to this side to get the slides open here. All right, so you'll notice that I've got all the doors shut. Good practice for when you're in transit. And then you got your one switch here that's going to turn on your hallway light. And then we'll go over to our control panel, and we're going to start. I always start with this dinette slide first here. So we're going to hold the out button here. Of course, make sure everything's clear outside first. Sometimes it helps to have another person outside just watching. And then you can see what it's doing there. This is a rack and pinion slide, and the little gaskets on the side kind of get pulled out like almost like a wiper blade. So that gets pulled out naturally on its own. And then once it's all the way done, you're going to listen and then stop. So you don't want to just keep holding it and letting the gears, you know, spin out like that. So just listen and stop. And then same thing over here on the kitchen slide. I'll go ahead and turn these lights on. The kitchen slide is going to be this one right here, so on the main one, and we're going to hit the out button. And again, I'm just watching, like to make sure everything's good there. Going all the way out, and this is another rack and pinion slide, so it's going to be the same thing. You'll just wait till it's almost done and listen for that sound, and then stop, just like that. Okay. Then you got your Schwintek slides up front, so these are a little bit different. You know, I may know this already, but basically there's a little motor back behind here on each of the tracks, and it just kind of goes in and out, and they all synchronize and work together. So they're really designed for lighter slides like these, and you know, plus you can't really do a rack and pinion underneath when you're up in the air like that, because you don't have the chassis to hide the gears and everything. So that's why Schwintek slides are real handy right there. But they're going to be up here on the top of your control panel. And basically the key with Schwintek slides, I'd say if there's any slide system that people complain about, probably Schwintek is up there. It's not that they're unreliable, it's just that there's a lot more things that could go wrong. And I think the most common thing is people don't know when you open and close them, you're supposed to hold it and go all the way out, all the way in. You shouldn't be stopping and starting, stopping and starting. You know, with the rack and pinion slides, that's not as big of a deal. You can, you know, stop and start them. But really with these Schwintek slides, you want to be all the way in, all the way out. And then when you do go all the way in and all the way out, you want to hold it in that in or out position after it's fully enclosed or retracted. And that kind of syncs up the motors again. So I'll show you what that's like. So we'll just do one at a time here. Let's see, we'll do this one first. And so we can see this one now. I parked over a little bit on this side, so I'm not going to go all the way on this one. So I know I just told you don't do that, but you just don't want to be going in and out. But I think I'm about 2 or 3 inches short, so I'm going to stop it right about there just to show you. So if you do have to stop it, that's how you want to stop it. You don't want to be, you know, stopping, starting kind of thing. So then we'll do the other one next. And this one will run all the way out. And I've never had problems personally with Schwintek slides. But you know, in the RV community in general, those are probably the ones that I hear the most about. But I mean, almost every RV has them, because what do you do when you have a slide above, you know, up higher like that? So anyway, I don't know if you noticed, but I held that out button a few seconds after it went all the way out, and it doesn't harm. It just kind of syncs up all the motors to make sure everything's all, you know, synced up. So I'd like to think that if you just do that every time, that'll, you know, minimize your chances of something going wrong. Yeah, just make sure you hold them in and out, and don't go in, out, in, out, in, out at the same time. All right, up in the front living room, let me just point out just a couple things here with the slide. So, you know, there's a light up here in the slide, and obviously there has to be a wire connecting that. And so that wire is on like almost like a bungee cord underneath, and sometimes it'll kind of peek out just a little bit here, and all that is a 12-volt wire. So if you want, you can just tuck it up under the couch. That's what that is there. And you got the same thing on the other side as well. So that's that. All right, so let's see, we'll just work through the family room here. So you've got your TV and everything. Your remotes are going to be in the center console here. You got a remote for the Fireplace. Didn't really use that one much. I just did the buttons on it. And then you've got the Jensen, the DVD player down there. But this one, actually, because they're the same brand, you can use this to control both. So, you know, pretty straightforward. I'm not going to walk you through all the details on this, but basically, the thing you do need to know is that, let me flip that light on back here. You do have, back here, if I can work the camera around, there you go. You can see the antenna inputs that I was talking about. So that's where they are located there. Some of the, we didn't really make use of the cable and satellite jacks, but some of that can be a little cryptic, you know, because there was 2 on the outside. So I think we plugged in the cable one time, and I can't remember which jack, you know, was that upper one that you're seeing that's not plugged in there. But basically, if you were at a park and you wanted to plug into their cable, you'd physically remove where that coax cable is on that bottom one where it says TV, and raise it up to the upper one, and you just have to figure out outside which jack that is in the wet bay. Then you'll also notice there's a green light back there. Hopefully you can see that, and a little push button, and that is the amplifier for the antenna. So if you ever do plug into a park satellite, you're going to want to turn that amplifier off because it interferes with the signal. So if you plug in and you're getting a kind of a you know, grainy picture or whatnot, then that's going to be because your antenna amplifier's on. It's competing with the park one here. So the TV is just like a normal one here. I don't think I've programmed it here. Let's see, maybe, yeah, it's like it's programmed for another state somewhere. These aren't our channel. So, but anyway, that's self-explanatory there. And then it does have component video hooked up to this DVD player down here. And so if you want to switch and watch a DVD, you just go to your source on here and switch over to component AV, actually, up there. All right, so that's going to transfer over here to your DVD player and then turn on. This is your DVD player, your AM, FM, your Bluetooth, and then the speaker zones, you've got a speaker A and a speaker B. So speaker A is these next to it, kind of like a sound bar, and then your zone B out here is going to be your outside speakers there. Okay. All right. So then if you wanted to turn on your FM radio and tune to something here, you can see how that works inside and out. If I turn the inside off, then you can hear it hopefully outside you can hear that just in the background a little bit. All right. So yeah, so zone B outside, zone A inside, and then you got your Bluetooth. I think you just hold that down for a few seconds to go into pairing mode. And the rest is probably self-explanatory for you. So again, this remote works on both of them. You just have to toggle back and forth between the DVD and TV buttons up there. All right, so those remotes are going to be in your center console here. The only complaint that I hear from people on that remote is you can see the sensor for it is right down there. And so sometimes if you're sitting in the chair, you know, you're almost like the angle that you're shooting is just right, you know, hits that lip of the counter first, and so sometimes you have to hold the remote up just a little bit for it to get, you know, signal there. All right, up here you've got all your manuals and stuff, and every time I added something I tried to put all those manuals in here, so it's a lot of stuff that, you know, you'll probably never need or read through, but it's there and it pertains to all the different stuff, the different equipment there. All right, and then nothing here on this side. This side's all emptied out. By the way, we left all these little protectors, shelf protectors. They're like a little grippy surface that's been cut. Thinking that, you know, they're already cut, you probably would like those to be in there, and they just kind of helps things, you know, not wiggle around. But if you don't want those, let me know. We can take them all out, but we, you know, probably don't have a use for them since they're cut already to the cabinet. So figured you probably would want those. So that's in all the cabinets there below. This one's empty. I think this one had some spare pieces. Sometimes we would put pieces between things that were breakable or fragile to protect them and keep them from getting hit in transit. Oh, I just see we left a little piece of one of our kids' toys in there. All right, so then that's that cabinet all emptied out, and then you've got a little storage in between there. Same thing on here, all emptied out. All right, fireplace. So you've got your power button inside here on the left side. So you're going to turn that on. You can control the, you know, the brightness and all that. But what we do is usually turn on the heater section here. Sometimes it's hard to see what those buttons are in the dark here. All right, here we go. So what we do is normally set this like a thermostat to maybe 72, depending on, you know, your preference there. And then we just let it cycle on and off, you know, like a thermostat. And that way, you know, it kind of has some free electric heat there that comes out of there. So that works pretty nicely. Another little trick is if you are in between seasons and maybe it's just a little humid in the coach, you can actually turn this fireplace on. You know, it's dry electric heat that then heats up the coach enough to trigger the ACs to come on. So then the ACs are kind of, they are cooling it down, but they're also removing humidity. So that kind of works out nice for us. If you want to dry it out a little bit, turn that on, turn the ACs on at the same time. And, you know, yeah, you're using electricity doing that, but most of the time it's free. All right, so that's how we do that. And you just shut that guy off there. All right, so pretty self-explanatory. You've probably seen how to unfold the couches before, so I won't show you that, but you just take those back cushions off and kind of fold it out there. And then these chairs are recliners, and the little pull is right there in the seat. And then the little accent lighting on the bottom, you just double tap on the cup holders there on both sides and turn those on. So just a double tap, and that turns on a little, lots of fun for the kids, right? All right, so we'll turn those both off. And then there is a USB and a power outlet in there as well, in the little center console there, and that is fed by this outlet back here. So there's actually three. There's the AC adapters, I think, are for the LED lights on the chairs, and then that big plug at the three prong is the 120 power. All right, on your registers, we've changed those out to be louvered, so you can control a little bit better where the heat is. It just helps balance everything out there. But generally, you know, the way you're going to get it is the way, for us at least, that it was balanced. So, you know, initially you'll look at these up here and think, man, they're closed. Why, you know, what was going on there? Well, there's still quite a good bit of air that's going to bleed out of here just because it's so close to the blower fan up there. And so for us, the way everything is set right now kind of keeps everything balanced from the front to the back. So, you know, feel free to adjust it, but I figured I'd get it to you the way it was balanced and working for us there. All right, as far as the windows opening and closing, so some of these are going to be sliders that you got two little, you know, things you squeeze and then go up and down. And it's kind of a little hard to do one-handed, but you can see how that works. Just make sure those are always down and in a locked position while you're in transit. And then this one here is going to be one that tilts out. And so all the ones that tilt, you're going to find a little knob. All right, sorry about that. I lost you again. My battery went dead. I should have charged them up the night before, and I did not, so I apologize. But I'm going to turn the AC on if that's all right with y'all, because it is starting to get kind of hot and humid. So while I do that, let me show you how I shut these doors here. I take my shoes off, of course, because it's all nice and clean, but these doors are not like house doors the way they shut. There's a really tight seal here, and every RV we've owned has been a little bit different. This one I'd say is definitely on the tighter side, which is good in that it seals everything up real nice, but it means you can't really slam it. So the way I like to do it so it doesn't wear down your latches and everything is I kind of bring it close, and then I put my finger on this latch to clear the striker plate, and then I just pull it, and if you watch real closely, it goes shut. So in that way too, you're not slamming it and banging into the frame every time. So I'll show you that again. You just kind of bring it tight, and you don't have to pull on that latch, but it just alleviates that pressure, and just pull. And I pull usually right here. You could pull here too, but this is directly on the door, whereas the screen is just kind of attached to it, being held on right here. So I think that's a better way to pull onto it. And then as far as locking it while we're here, so when it's in the red position, it's unlocked, and then when it's pointing away from the red, it's locked. So kind of a little confusing, but if you just think about the deadbolt being in the same direction as the top of the lever there. All right, well, let's turn on the AC real quick, and then we'll pick back up. So you got two thermostats here. You can do it on your phone, but I'll just show you here on the first. You got two thermostats. So I like to think about it, if you're looking at it right here and then you turn to the right, it pertains to those same two ACs. So you've got, in other words, one up there and two up there. And then you've got right here, this would be 2 and this would be 1. So I hope that makes sense. But if you just kind of rotate this way, it corresponds to the same position on the wall. All right, so we're going to go ahead and turn these on. This bottom is like your mode, and you just cycle through. We're going to put it on to cool, low, auto. All right, and I'll tell you why I did that in a second, and then we'll do this one. So that's our front, so you can hear that one just kicked on. And then we'll do our middle one, cool, low, auto. All right, so I like to put it on low when I'm in a more moderate climate. Like right now, I'm covered in the shade. It's just hot and humid out. And what that's going to do is it's going to, instead of being at the full 15K BTU on each unit, it's going to step it down a little bit and basically slow that cooling process down to maximize the moisture that gets pulled out of the air. And that's really the humidity, at least here in Georgia. That's what we're dealing with most of the time. So. But if you're in a really hot climate and you want that max, then just change it to cool high. And then auto, of course, is your fan mode. And generally you want it to be an auto. Now at nighttime, if you want that to be the fan on all the time for like a sound machine, you can do that. Then you just turn the auto feature off by cycling through there. Then on the furnace, let's see. It's been a while since we've turned the heat on, so I'm trying to remember. The furnace is this side, I believe. Let me just cycle through here and make sure. So I'm going to turn on the furnace just to make sure. So we're going to set it to 80. In the furnace, we should hear it kick on here. There's a little bit of a delay. Let's see. I might be wrong. It might be the other one. Let me go over here and make sure that I'm telling you right. So basically, both of them will cycle into the heat mode, but only one of them's going to control it. And I think it is this one now that I think about it. All right, yeah, it is, because I just see it was set to 50 in the winter time. All right, yeah, so sorry about that, y'all, but this is the side that you're going to use to control your furnace. All right, so let me turn this one back to fan, low, cool, auto. All right, there you go. So then your furnace is going to kick on, and it's basically sucking air in through that intake right there and then blowing it out through all the registers. All right, so I'm not going to let it cycle through enough to turn the heat on, actually, since it's so hot out today. But that is your furnace, and then after you turn it off, it's going to basically exhaust all the hot air that's in the system before, just like your house, where it'll run for a minute or two after you shut it off. All right, so basically you can't run this AC, which is your one up in the kitchen, and the heat at the same time, because the thermostat says no, I can only do one or the other. However, this one, technically it's not synced up and talking to the other. You could run the AC at the same time as the heat if you wanted to. Normally we just did the Fireplace, like I said, in a more, you know, temperate climate where you have humidity. So that's that. All right. Then on your phone, as far as the Bluetooth, I did swap these out for the Bluetooth model. And so let me pull up on the phone here. It's going to be the, oh, you see that? This RV climate app that I've got. And you can see, so it's Coleman Mach RV climate. So now this is syncing up through Bluetooth, and there's a little bit of a delay. So you can see here it's changing. There it goes. So now it's synced up on both sides, and it shows you what it's set to in the mode. So if I tap on this, then I can adjust it what I want the temperature to be on. So let's set it to 72, and then I'm going to hit set. So then it takes a second, it sends that to Bluetooth, and then if I want to do the other side, I just hop over here, tap on it, 72, and hit set. All right, and then we should be good. Okay, so now we're both on there. So when you get this app, you're going to have to go to this pair new thermostat thing on your phone, and make sure your Bluetooth is on, and then I think you hold the, oh, I'm trying to remember. It's either the bottom mode button for a few seconds or both the top and up and down. I can't remember which now, but it's going to be one of those two. So you're going to hit that button, and that's going to turn it on there. All right, so let's go ahead and get this AC cranking here. There is a little bit of a like a timeout lockout delay when you're switching between heat and cool to prevent damage to the equipment. So you'll notice there that it, oh, I don't know, maybe that was 5 minutes at least before that front unit just kicked on. So that's just for safety. All right, but while that's cooling down, let me finish up here. I think it cut out when I was showing you the windows up here. So the ones that crank, I was just saying, you just want to make sure that you're watching what direction to open them up in. And sometimes I get confused even. But I'm turning it, and you'll start to see that lever in there move, and then you'll start to see it crack. And like I was saying, I don't know if it cut off, but sometimes the rubber gasket on the outside might stick a little bit if you haven't used the window in a while, so you just want to go slow, you know. But you can see here it's closed but not all the way, so I'm still turning my knob to make sure that that's sealed down tight, and it's just like screwing a you know, a knob down. All right, so that's that window. Then you got your emergency exits for code and everything, and that's self-explanatory. Of course, your roller shades are all tucked up in there. All right, so what else? Okay, your antenna up here, you can rotate that around. I mean, for us, it seemed to be mostly omnidirectional. But, you know, maybe you're somewhere where the signal's not as good, and you can kind of just push up in here like this and then rotate it. And it's not something you crank up. It's that real short, stubby, almost looks like a disc, kind of like wings up on top of your roof there. So you're basically just rotating the direction of the antenna if you need to enhance your reception a little bit there. All right, anything else up here? Let's see, the puck lights, you know, it's on one switch, but you can, if you want, go around to each one and control them by touching in the middle, of course, like that. All right, I think that's about it in the family room here. Come on down to the stairs. I'll show you the Victron real quick. All right, so this is your battery monitor, and it also syncs up through Bluetooth. Basically, you don't want to go into your setup and change anything because it's all set for the lithium battery that's in there. But if you ever change the batteries or whatever, that would be where you go in to change, and it's actually easier to do on the phone, the app. But you can hit these up and down, these plus and minus. So right now we're on the percentage of the battery, and it's plugged into shore power, so that's why. And then this is your range. So right now it says INF infinite because we're plugged in again to shore power. But if I took that off, it's going to start tracking the battery usage in and out, and it'll give you an estimate of empty, you know, just like a car fuel tank. And so it's based on your most recent use. So I mean, it's going to fluctuate, you know, as you're turning things on and off. And then it tells you your volts there, and then how many volts that we're consuming. We're plugged in right now. Oh, I'm sorry, no, that's your auxiliary battery, which there is none. That would be like if you had a motorized coach and you had a second battery. And then we're not consuming any watts or amp hours or anything. And that's just because the charger has fully charged the battery, so there's nothing going on there. But normally that's going to tell you how many watts is being consumed if you weren't plugged into shore power. So really love this guy. And then of course you can get the app on your phone. Let me pull that out here and show you what that looks like. So it's going to be this Victron Connect app, and it's going to pull up and show the unit there. And basically you just have to pair it the first time, and then you get all those same stats here. So that's really nice. And then it's got a history and stuff if you're boondocking, and a trends with graphs and all that, so you can figure all that out. Then you've got your switches for the lights outside, so I'll just flip those on, the down lighting outside. So let me flip those on, and then you can kind of see, I'm going to go upside down here for a second, but you can see the amber light over there, and I don't know if you can see it on the other side, but basically all the way around both sides there is the amber light. So one side is set to each side of the switch there. So if you just want your passenger side on, you can do that. But that's really nice. A lot of times we'll leave that on the whole night just to have some light out there. All right, then here's this little storage cabinet that I added here. Let me get my little flashlight so I can show you inside there. So it goes back a pretty good ways, and it's all lined and everything. Your water heater is going to be behind that panel, basically right over here. But yeah, when I saw how much space was back there, I said, yeah, we need to open this up for sure. And it's great for shoe storage and bags and stuff. All right, so that's that. All right, so let's go on into the kitchen. So the fridge, you probably heard a lot about the 12-volt fridge already. We love it. We basically set this usually to the, so when it's off right now, the light's on, but it's not cooling if it's on 0. But we usually set it to usually about 3 or so. You can go all the way up to 7. So in my experience, it gets almost, too cold, like it's so powerful. So that's why usually 3 to 4, somewhere in there is what works best for us to get it to about 30, 36, 37, somewhere around there. And then it's basically blowing air just like your fridge at home and cooling it. So I think the only caveat would be is you don't want to block that ventilation flow, because you can see it's coming out of right there at the top and then going down. So if you've got items pushed up against the back, you can see how the trays stop there. I don't know if you can see it on the video, but they stop about an inch short of the back for that reason, so that the airflow helps. So I've noticed if we put like maybe a yogurt, like a Greek yogurt or something right here next to the thing, that Greek yogurt might be partially frozen because it's kind of blocking the flow. So just make sure you keep that open in the back. And then these bars you can take out. We just added those to kind of keep food while you're in transit from sliding off the shelves there. All right, and then you got plenty of space in the door. You can put stuff, gallon milk jugs and whatnot. And then your freezer's got its own separate control here. But basically when you turn the fridge to 0, it's going to turn the freezer off even if it's cranked up to the max. So we usually put this in the mid position. That seems to be about right. But I mean, it can get really, really cold for sure. And then this one's same deal. It's got a fan in the back to keep everything cool. So it gets really cold, maybe 30 minutes or less, and you should be at your temperature. All right, so I'm going to turn that off, and then let me show you one other thing here. Put that back on 0. All right, so one other thing here, when you're in transit, the doors close pretty firmly. I mean, they're pretty good seal. I'm pulling with a pretty good bit of force, and it's not coming open. But they do also give you this little thing right here as a safety measure. So you'll see right between the two doors, there's a little threaded insert right there where you'll insert this, and that just keeps the doors, eliminates all chances of them opening up. So you'll put that in there like that. If you're ever storing it though, and you're not using the rig, you don't want those doors to be shut because it could produce, with humidity and moisture in there, it could produce mold. So then you got this little contraption here that I've got plenty of these laying around. So let's see, turn it around this way. There you go, like that. So it fits in there, and that keeps the door from closing to give you some ventilation so that you don't get milled and mold, but it is enough to shut to turn that light off so it's not on all the time. All right, so in transit though, when I hand it off to the shipper, I'm gonna take that piece out and shut the door obviously for you so it's not swinging open. All right, you got your stove here. It's got a arrestor, spark arrestor there, so you can light the burners without having a lighter. So let's see, I think I got the propane on still, so I can show you what that's like. So you'll put it on the light position. If you haven't used them in a while, it might take a little bit. You can see it sparking there just to bleed the lines of air. So I'm just doing it still. Yep, there you go. So, you know, maybe anywhere from 3 to 10 seconds if you haven't used it in a while. And then that's going to light that up there. Of course, you've got your vent up here you can turn on, and your other light as well. And then as far as lighting the bottom down there, let me turn that off, it's kind of noisy. As far as lighting your oven down here, it also has a pilot light, so you don't have to light it every time. So let me see if I can get this on video for you. You almost have to have 2 hands, so I'm going to set this right here. But basically, you've got your oven control right here. Actually, let me turn that on. That's probably better, and you can see. And then your spark over here. So you're going to push this to the pilot with that little flame there, and you're going to push it in like this. So you push it in like that. And then at the same time, you're going to hit your spark. And I'm looking down underneath this panel that kind of splits it in half. And I'm looking at the pilot light. And the pilot light is just kind of like the top burners. If you haven't used it in a while, you're going to have to hold it in. And usually, sometimes it can even take 20 seconds or more to bleed all that air out of the line there. So just give it a second. Still lighting it. Figure this way y'all can see what that looks like. And once you're on the road, of course, then the propane gets shut off, so the next stop you'll have to relight it. But I have found that it just takes longer to bleed the air out of the oven below. There it goes. All right, so then once you get it lit, see if you can see that down there. Hopefully you can see that little blue flame there. So once you get it lit, I'm still holding in the pilot just for a few seconds, just kind of like an old school furnace. And then you can see that little, right there, that little blue flame, that is your pilot light. So then once you're ready to use the stove, then you'll just turn it to your desired temperature, and then you'll see it light up all the way across the bottom there. All right, pretty self-explanatory, the rest of that. So then when you're done, you can turn it off, and that will also kill the pilot light back there. So if you don't want to turn it off, then you're going to put this in the position of, you know, right there, so you keep that pilot light lit. All right, turn that off. Always want to fold this down in transit. Make sure it's always folded down. What else? You've got all your storage down here. Again, we left all those liners in there that are lined ahead of time, and same in these cabinets as well. And then below this back one, there's actually a little, I don't know if you can tell, there's a little access panel, like a wooden panel that kind of cuts off the storage. And behind there is the electrical for the, I think it's the microwave, I believe, if you ever had to service that. So that's what's back there. And then you've got your drawers here. Should be all empty. And yep, all lined and empty, ready to go. And you got your pantry storage as well, nice and deep. And then you got up here. Okay, up here we've got some filters that are for the range hood. There's a kind of like a filter to trap, I guess, grease, you know, whatever might get sucked into there. And so I think you can buy original ones from the manufacturer, but they're really expensive, and all it is one of those kind of like charcoal mesh type filters. So I just found these generic ones on Amazon, and you can cut them down to size if you want, but really it was about the perfect size. So it came in a 3 or 4 pack, so I figure, well, you guys will probably be set for life right there. So that's what those are. All right, then on the microwave, it's just got the eject button here on the thing, and sometimes I find you just have to push it more firmly in there. Like if you don't push it all the way, you know, it's not going to eject it, so you got to push it in firmly. And then as far as the turntable goes, we leave it in here. Some people will put, you know, like a pad or something in there, but we've never had any issues just leaving it in there just like that. So no problem. All right, what else? We got the storage up here. These are all emptied out. You got your liners as well. All right, then you've got another GFI outlet that's tied in there that we added. It's kind of nice for like a coffee maker or something. And then I think I mentioned that's where your furnace is, your blower. So if you ever had to service your furnace, you're just going to take off those, about 4 screws it looks like, to get to your furnace. And that's where all the ducting comes, and this is basically your return, more or less. So you'll hear the blower. One thing to keep in mind is the furnace exhaust shoots out. You saw that outside. And so if you're ever sucking in air, maybe through the fan in the bathroom, and it's pulling air into your coach, then it's going to look for every little crack, you know, in your windows or you know, in the slides to pull air from the outside in, right? Because it's sucking air out. It doesn't want to make your rig a vacuum. So you might notice, you know, some people, their first RV, they feel like warm air from the outside coming in where their furnace inlet is, where their furnace return is, and that's because there are some, you know, pipes to the outside that if you're sucking air in will bring some warm air in. So all that to say, you might feel some warm air on your feet coming through there if you've got that turned on, and that's completely normal. All right, let's see, this drawer right here gives you access to let me take it out so I can show you real quick, to all your converter stuff. So you're just going to pull on the tabs just like a household drawer, go up on one side, down on the other, and then it just lifts right out of there. And I really like this because you don't have any screws or anything. And then let me grab my light so you can see in there. So I tried to tidy this up. You know, it's always like a spaghetti mess, but you can see it's been tidied up quite a bit and tie wrapped, and things are held in place. But right there on the floor, that's your converter charger right there that's charging the battery. So if you ever had any issues with the battery charging, there are some fuses in that you could check, but I don't think you'll ever have any issues. I've never had any, and this one I really like. It's a smart charger and really works great. Then that's the back of your breaker box right there, where all your fuses and breakers are, and where the 50 amp power comes into the coach. And then let's see, you can kind of see some of the heat ducts from around the corner right there. But yeah, basically everything in here is where things, all the electrical and everything collides and comes together. That's the back of your vacuum up there, and then some outlets. And yeah, so that's all that stuff there. This is just only if you had to service something, you know, this is where you would go to get this stuff. So I like that it's open. You just have to pull that one drawer out. It's kind of nice. A lot of rigs you have to take things apart, unscrew all kinds of different panels. So I kind of like that about this one. All right, get that drawer shut. You just want to line up your slides like a house drawer and put it in there. All right, then in this drawer, or this cabinet, you're going to find all your vacuum attachments, your central vac. So you've got your hose and attachments, and then I think I put the pole maybe in this next drawer. Let's double check here. Yep. So there's your pole, your telescoping pole for the vacuum. And then this trash can, I don't think it came with it, but it kind of is like the perfect fit for this little cabinet here, and it has a lid, so we figured it would be good because I don't think we'll have another use for it. So you can see it's got a lid and it just fits perfectly right there for a you know, regular 13-gallon trash bag. All right, so I'm going to leave your hose and everything in there. You probably saw the back of the dust pan as well. I'm just going to show you the filter here. All right, there we go. Let's see if I can get you down in there. Oh, I'm not doing a very good job here. There we go. So you can see there's a shut-off valve, like a quarter-turn shut-off valve, and I just put that in there for the filtered water, just as a precaution if you ever had to, you know, work on it, shut it off. And then I'm pretty sure that it's a twist-turn style with an O-ring in there. I'm pretty sure there's a valve that when you twist it out, that, you know, the water gets shut off anyway right up there. But it's just a twist-turn style, super easy. And I put the link in that document I gave you for consumables, as far as what brand and everything, and it's served us really well. We like the taste of the water that comes out, and of course that's going through 2 filters by the time it gets to your sink here, the whole coach filter and then the one below for the filtered spigot there. All right, nothing fancy about the sink there. You can, you know, pull that out and down. Let's see, let's turn the water pump on so I can show you what that looks like. All right, so you got on your panel over here, your water pump. We're gonna flip it on and it's lit. And remember, in the wet bay, there's that other one. So both of them have to be in the on position. So if we went out in the wet bay now, that one would be lit red as well. If we turn the one off in the wet bay, it basically cuts the power to the water pump. So this one would still be lit red, but the one out in the wet bay would be turned off. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, so then the water pump is gonna be priming. As soon as you turn it on, it's gonna be behind the water heater back here, in kind of right behind that wet bay panel. So you'll hear the water pump a little bit sometimes as it cycles on and off. So I'll just show you what that looks like. Yeah, it's pretty quiet. I mean, you hear something low pitched, but it's very quiet. All that to say, if you had your water pump on and you weren't using the water, and this is normal if you haven't used it in a while, it's going to get all the air, purge it out of there. But all that to say, if you haven't used it in a while and you turn on that water pump and you hear it cycling, but you don't have any water valves open, any fixtures open, that means you don't have any water in your freshwater tank, and you don't want to burn up your pump, if it doesn't have any water in there. So you want to make sure you always have water in your water tank before you turn that on. All right, and I don't think I showed you that outside, so I'll have to remember when I'm done to show you where the dump is for that. Underneath the underside. But basically it's going to feed your faucet. So at rest areas, if you're stopping and you want to make lunch or use the bathroom, you're going to turn that water pump on, and then that's going to instantly pressurize the whole coach. And it's same on the filtered water as well. So that's kind of a nice feature to have for rest areas. All right, let's see. Let me show you the cell booster real quick in here. So when I added this, I added that 120 volt up here as well, thinking that in case the 12 volt power for the booster ever failed, or I don't know, maybe something was wrong with the 12 volt system, you have a backup means, since it's, communication is so important, to plug this in right here. So there's no need to plug both of these in at the same time. It's the same jack, obviously, but that is what that AC adapter is for right there. And this does consume some wattage. So if you're not plugged into shore power, you're putting in storage, you probably just want to pull that out or turn off your battery disconnect. And that way that gets all shut off. But basically, this black cable right here runs through the little grommet and then goes up to the roof outside. And I'll try to show you the roof at the end. But that goes to your antenna on the back ladder. And then this little skinnier one is your inside antenna. And let's see if I can reach it up here. Yep, there it is. So then this is going to be your inside antenna. And basically the key to these boosters is you have to have a signal on your phone, at least a weak signal, in order for it to amplify. And then on top of that, if you got to have your phone pretty close to the inside antenna for it to boost the signal. And if you think about it, if the outside antenna is trying to strengthen the signal, but then the inside antenna is doing the same thing, they'll collide and intersect, and it won't work. So that's why the outside antenna is really strong, bringing those waves in, and then the inside antenna is weaker so that it doesn't interfere and collide. So that's just one misunderstanding people have about these, is they say, well, hey, it doesn't work unless your phone is a few inches away, and that's how it's supposed to be. So a lot of times I'll put my phone as a hotspot, put it right up to the internal antenna there, and then you're good to go. You've got way more bars than you would otherwise. So really like that a lot. And it's got enough cord where you can kind of go across the top of this slide here, and you can set the internal antenna right up here if you're working in the front, or you can even kind of go over the top of the bathroom door toward the back bedroom there. So it's kind of a nice central location there. All right, so that's in there. I'll leave it unplugged for you. All right, you got your 120 volt ceiling fan. That's going to be right here. So that's up above there, and it is reversible. So in the winter you can flip it going the other way. But we a lot of times will just let that run just to help move air, especially if it's really hot outside, just to keep it real balanced in there. All right, and then you got your smoke detector up there, standard 9 volt battery, nothing fancy about that. Then you've got your kind of ambient lighting above the slide there. It's kind of nice at nighttime if you want to use that. Let's see what else. Okay, fire extinguisher there. You got this we attached with command strips, 3 of them I think, and I figured, well, might as well just leave it for y'all. You can refill this just by taking it out and then unscrewing it, and you can put any hand sanitizer. It doesn't have to be Purell necessarily, but we found that helpful for the kids coming in, if just have them use that real quick. Then you got your Dinette lights. These are not on a switch, so you'll just come up here and tap these on and off. And then of course you got your day-night shades on the windows there. This is going to be a slider right here, so you just pull and slide that open. Make sure that's in the lock position. There we go. Okay. Hang on a second. There. All right. And then these are going to be up and down like double hung windows basically. On the dinette there is a strap that holds the chairs in place both sides. I think we forgot to do that before, and the chairs didn't move at all. So it is there for safety, but if you forget, it's not the end of the world. You do want to be extra careful when you're closing up everything to make sure this table end is down, because when it's in this up position here, there's a little pull underneath it that pulls to straighten it out. But if it's in the up position, it's going to collide with your island there. Then you got an outlet down there hooked to the GFI circuit. What else? Oh, this might be interesting for y'all to know. So when I first got the rig, I remember, I think it was the day I got home after I took delivery, I came in here, and it's really hard to see on video because it's so small, but I remember seeing a little like scrape here. Let's see, there we go. A little scrape right here on the floor. I don't know if you can see that, but I thought, man, what is that? What is going on there? It looked like someone was taking a nail and dragging it across the floor. And what I figured out is, if you look where it is, it's lined up with the foot of that table. And what happened is they installed the table, they put a screw that was too long into the floor, and it went through the floor, through the subfloor, such that when you put the slide in and out, it was dragging on the floor. So what I did is I talked to Forest River about it, and basically, yeah, I could have brought it in for service, and they could have ripped out all the flooring here. You see, this is like one piece all the way in here, and they lay it down before the cabinet. So, they're not going to take the cabinets out. So it would have been pieced, and there would have been seams. And I say, yeah, I mean, that's just almost worse, because then you've got the potential for things to start peeling all around the perimeter. And so what I opted to do is I just got some, I can't remember if it was super glue or like an epoxy that was clear. And I just worked it in the, where it kind of started to damage the floor there, and worked it in real good. And then just put some books on it, heavy weights overnight, and let it dry. And since then have had no issues. And you really don't notice it, but I thought I'd point that out in case you see it and wonder what that was. So obviously the screw's been fixed there. I took that out, and I checked the other 3 on there as well, and made sure that they weren't poking through. But it is what it is. It's one of those things where they just went in a little bit too far, too deep. So that's what that is. When you push your slide in, it's normal for the carpet here to kind of get either pulled up like this because it runs into the island, or it might curl the other way, and it'll flatten out once you open everything up, even if it's been in storage for a long time. Then you got your vacuum down there. You just lift that up, shuts off automatically. What else? Anything down on this side? I think we covered everything on that side. We leave that little drying rack there in transit, no problem. No problem for us there. Of course, you got your vacuum over here that you can turn on and off. You'll connect your hose right there. Really good suction. Like, it's really, really strong. So, but you definitely want to make sure when you turn that suction on that either this is open or the down there is open on the dustpan. All right, let's see. You got your breaker box here. I went ahead and labeled everything with nice computer labels, so it's real easy to read, and then did the same thing on the 12 volt. So it might be handy to have these fuses. You can see they're mostly 15 amp, but there's a 120 and a couple 10s and a 3. Just have one of those handy so that you're, if any of them go bad, you've got some spare ones. I've never had issues like that out camping. I always carry them with me, but I've never had to replace one. So just a side note there. But if anything isn't working electrically, I would jump first to your breaker box here and just see if anything's tripped. But I haven't had any issues. I mean, the only time I think I mentioned was on that slide outside where I showed you where one of the wires was a little too short, and it was getting kind of crimped, kind of pinched by the slide mechanism. And so my symptom was the breaker would get tripped on the GFI circuit, and that's why. So what else? Your LP detector down there. These are kind of notoriously in the RV industry for sometimes sending a false alarm if the right conditions exist, where maybe it's the humidity is a certain way, or there's just something else in the air that simulates carbon monoxide. So don't panic if you hear it go off. It may not be carbon monoxide. Of course, evacuate. But I know in, let's say, 5 years of RV ownership, I think I've had it happen twice in 2 different RVs where the CO sensor went off, and there's no gas on, nothing was running, but it was a false alarm, and basically you just had to clear the air around it, and it shut off. And I've had the same thing actually in my rental, where people have told me in the middle of the night it woke them up, and it was just I think they had blocked it. I think it does have some some kind of mechanism where if you have put like a pillow or something over it, it might get stale air and then think it's, you know, carbon monoxide. So just a side note on that. And that is hardwired into the 12-volt system. So there's not a, some of them have a backup battery, but there's not a, you know, separate battery for that there. Okay, let's look at the auto level control panel here. So to wake that up, you just hit that little home button, and this is like a basically a cheap Android tablet from, you know, I don't know, 5-10 years ago. So it's got these two little icons on it, My RV and leveling, and I've never really used this one. It's like a bunch of manuals and instructions and things like that, but you can, you know, get through all that. But we're going to go to our home screen and just go to the leveling. And so you can see what options you have here. So if you hit this enter button off to the side, it's going to go to info right now. And it's going to show you that we are 0.1 degrees, you know, front to rear out of alignment. So 0.1, I mean, you're not going to pick that up. But if it's like 1 degree, 2 degrees, that's where you'll start to feel it. So if you're curious, if you get somewhere and you're parked for a few days and you want to know, hey, you know, are we still level? Because sometimes the ground settles, you can go here and just see. And if it's, you know, 0.5, 0.7, something larger like that, you can go back then to your screen here and hit auto level again. And that's going to basically redo it. Now, it's not going to retract the jacks necessarily, or like reset it completely. It's just going to look at where it's at now and adjust them as needed. So there's no harm done. If I was to hit it right now, there's no harm done in hitting it now. It's not going to do like a nosedive or anything like that. And then your auto hitch is also in here. So if I hit this right now, it's going to retract my rear and mid jacks and then raise the nose up so it's ready for the truck to hitch up. So that's what that is. And then if you had to go into manual mode here, so we're going to arrow down to manual mode and hit enter. And then basically it lets you select which jacks. Let's see, it's been a while since I've done this. Okay, I think you want to hit retract first. There we go. So you choose whether you want to retract or extend first, and then you'll tap left to right or rear to front. And so this is useful. I guess I've never really used it camping, but if you wanted to manually level yourself and then use the indicators there to do it, you could, but I don't know why you would unless the auto just wasn't working for you. The only time I have used this is when I've jacked up the RV on my, you know, concrete storage pad out here. That's the only time I would do that. I would never ever jack up the rig on, you know, on the side of the road or somewhere where it's not level already, because the jacks just aren't made for that. But if you're on a perfectly level concrete pad, you know, then you can actually use the jacks to raise it, like when I was changing the tires out or doing the suspension work, that sort of thing. So that's that right there. And it'll go to sleep eventually, and you got your little home button, but you can see it's like the touch screen is not quite as nice as your, you know, modern cell phone that you have. All right, so I think that's about it there. Control panel, you saw most of the slides there. So you got your Schwintek slides in the front living, your propane tank monitor, and this is basically, as far as I know, like another remote, basically, that's reading into, I don't know if it's Bluetooth or a proprietary frequency, but it's basically reading into those same sensors just like your phone. So I think you have to pair these the first time to the sensors just like you do your phone, but this obviously comes with it, so that'll be set for you. Then you've got your display here for your battery, and you push that and it lights up. This is obviously not very accurate, so I would just rely on the Victron because of the, you know, you only get 4 different levels essentially, and plus it's lithium, and this is probably wired for lead acid, the meter anyway. Then you got your freshwater tank, so it's pretty much empty. The thing about these is, and it's kind of just a joke in the RV industry, is they're just not accurate. And you can see it says empty, but you saw just a minute ago I had the water pump in water. So that just means that it's somewhere between the 1/3 and the empty. So maybe it's like 1/8, right? So you'll kind of get used to that, but it is helpful to see if it's full, half full, that kind of thing, just not real precise. Then you got your black tank there, your gray tank, and your gray tank 2. So gray tank 2, let's see if I can remember now. We haven't used it in about 6 months, so I'm trying to remember. I think gray tank 2 is the bathroom, if I'm not mistaken, and gray tank 1 is your galley, your kitchen. But y'all will figure that out pretty quick. Though you'll see one tank is clearly bigger than the other one, and I think it's the kitchen, if I remember right, is the bigger tank. and the bathroom is the smaller, and that actually worked really good for us as far as filling them up. We would fill them up about equally when we're out camping and not hooked up to sewer. So that's that. The black one is, they're just notoriously inaccurate because it's like a thing in your tank that's floating, and I mean, it just, with solids and toilet paper, I mean, they're notoriously inaccurate. So we've never really run into a problem where we filled up our black tank before our gray. I mean, a lot of times you'll fill up your gray tanks 2 or 3 times before your black tank gets full. But you'll get a sense of when it's getting full, and then also your black tank in the toilet is basically directly below it. So I mean, you will hear water going into the tank when it's full. You'll hear the difference and know, hey, I'm getting really full if this isn't being accurate for you. So just to throw that out there, that's just unfortunately the way the tank monitors are. They make another one from a company called Sea Level that puts them on the outside, but RV makers just don't put those in until you get into really high-end stuff. So just a side note there. All right, so we do have our water pump on. This is our propane water heater. So outside I showed you the electric water heater. This is going to be your propane. So if we flip this on, your propane needs to be on, and this will light up first. It's DSI fault, and that's going to light up every time the first few seconds, and then it'll go away. But basically it's lighting the burner on the propane. So you want to make sure you got water in the water heater, which you should always unless you've drained it, and you want to make sure your water pump or you're hooked up to city water. And so then that's going to go off, and then you know that the water heater's on. Now sometimes you'll get this right here where maybe the propane is turned off or it hasn't been bled through, and so it's just warning you, hey, you've turned on your propane water heater, but there's a problem with the gas or something, the supply. So then you'll flip it off and then flip it back on. So most of the time when we're parked somewhere, we're just using the electrical on the water heater because it's free. The only time I would say, all right, sorry, my battery went out again. 3rd time's a charm here. So anyway, I was just saying the only time you would use the propane water heater is if you don't have electrical, or if you're maybe taking lots of showers back to back, or lots of laundry or dishwashing and doing lots of high hot water demand things, and you want it to recover more quickly when the tank is emptied out. So it's a nice big I can't remember now if it's a 10 or 12 gallon, but it's a bigger one for an RV of this size. So we never really had a problem and a need to turn on the propane, but that is an option there. I did want you to see though how that DSI fault light came off now. So if you ever see that light come on after you turn on the water heater, just turn it off, turn it back on, and I mean, I've always, in my experience, it's always cleared out. If it doesn't, that means maybe the gas is shut off, or maybe there's another problem with the burner, but never encountered that here. So that is that. Then you got your lights here. So one of these is your inside, kind of everything's tied together except for the dinette and the slides. And then this one's going to be your outside light here. So I don't know if you can see how it's reflecting off the barn wall there. That's going to be under your awning. And that one's super bright. So a lot of times, at nighttime, if you're out there, you turn it on, but then you almost feel embarrassed to leave it on because it's blinding your neighbors maybe. So that's when those ambient lightings, downlights, the amber ones, that's what I'm trying to say, work better on the outside there. All right, then you got your awning here. We'll just touch on that real quick. So you always want to make sure you're clear. So obviously right now I can't go all the way out, but I will show you just a little bit. But it's always good practice just to visually be looking outside or have someone outside watching you. And so I'm just going to push on the outside here on the out, and then kind of watch through this window here. And so I'm going out, and it takes a second for you to be able to see it, but you can see it's coming out there. And you want to go out about 2 feet and then stop like I did. And that's because there's a gas prop in there that you don't want to go out too fast, and it could kind of cause it to prematurely go out, because you're forcing that gas out of there too quickly. So kind of wait a few seconds and then go out all the way. And yeah, I can't show you all the way out, unfortunately, but you basically go out till there's a flap, like a trim piece that kind of comes down, and that trim piece should be 90 degrees pointed to the ground, kind of perpendicular to the ground. And then once you're out there, you can pitch the awning using these sliders. So you'll put a little bit of pressure to each side of the arm, and then you can tighten these down, and that'll pitch the awning so that if it's got a light rain or something and you want to pitch it to one side, you can. So that's kind of a nice feature. When I first got the unit, it was like they mounted the awning crooked. from side to side because it wouldn't close properly. And so I kind of took a tape measure and discovered that basically they had put the, I can't remember if it was the top or the bottom, but it was in too far. Like they just didn't measure, I guess, real precisely. Anyway, all that to say, I fixed it. I, got it lined up properly, and so now it closes the way it should. When you're closing it, you're just going to go to the in position, and you can see it's just kind of rolling back up there, and then you'll hear it if I'm real quiet. And there's no harm done in holding the in button after it's done. I mean, there's no harm done doing that because it has a motor that shuts off. But you can see how you want it to seat properly along the side here. It kind of goes around the thing. So before I aligned it, it was like at the top, you wouldn't see this trim piece on the outside like it should be. It would be kind of like inside and off kilter. So anyway, that's been fixed and dealt with. I thought it'd be helpful for y'all to know some of the issues so that they've been dealt with and fixed, and if they ever represent themselves, the history then. All right, so that's about it on this panel. I think I've showed you everything. Yeah, we got all that. So I'm going to turn off the water heater, and then we can leave the water pump on for the bathroom. All right, there's a little bumper there for the door, just added there so that the handle doesn't run into the trim, so that's kind of nice. We a lot of times will leave that door open. Sometimes you can, you see the difference on the walkway there, but it's kind of how we use it there. All right, so let's head into the bathroom. You got your switch on the wall for the lights, and it's also the same circuit as the fan. So I wish they would have wired in a separate switch here for the fan, but when it came from the factory, they didn't have any kind of power, fan or anything up there, so you'd have to stand on a stool to open and close the vent every time, and that obviously that's a deal breaker. But they basically just wired in the fan thinking that, okay, well, once you open it, you'll turn the lights and the fan off with this switch here. So all that means is when you want to use your fan, you have to have that switch on, which most of the time in the bathroom, you're going to have that fan on anyway. All right, so while we're talking about that, let's pull out the switch. So you can leave it in there or you can pull it out. But basically, you're just going to hit this power button to kind of wake up the display. And this synchronizes just like a TV remote. So, it was sleeping, so you kind of have to sync it together. So I'm going to hit this button off because now we're synced, and then we're going to hit the power button, and then we're going to hit the open and close button or any of the on and off buttons. So you just want to make sure it's pointed up at the fan there. So we'll hit this button here, and it's going to turn the fan on, and we're going to go up here. Whoops, I hit the close button. I'm sorry. Let's see. There we go. Sorry folks, it's been a while since I've used it, so I had a memory blank. So yeah, you just hit the power button, but it has to be pointed. I don't think I had it pointed up at it. And that's going to open up the vent up there, and it's one of the vents that has a cover built into it, a rain cover, so you don't have to worry about adding a hood or a max air cover on top. It's already built in. And then you can just adjust the flow, so it's on 100% now. And so when you hear that beeping, that's signaling that the remote is reading in the inputs or the unit is reading in the remote. So you can see there. So if you don't hear it, if I point it away from it, see how it's not beeping anymore. So you got to go point it at the actual unit there. All right. And then you've got a close feature. If you wanted to, for whatever reason, close the vent while the fan's running, you can do that. This is going to reverse it. Normally you want the air out, but if for whatever reason you wanted to blow air in, you could. All right, little tip on that. When you're using the toilet and you're dumping it, you don't want to have that fan sucking air at the same time, because if you can imagine, it's basically going to then try to pull air from the black tank, and it's vented. The black tank is vented up through the roof, so it's going to basically turn the bathroom into a vent for the black tank. So we've got the water pump on now. So basically when I start to flush, I want to make sure that that fan is off. Otherwise you may get some smell from the black tank. All right, as far as flushing, y'all probably know this already, but you're going to push down just about a quarter of the way to fill it up with water. And the water pump is on right now, so it's kind of purging some of the air out of the line, so that's why it's sputtering a little bit. But you're going to fill it up to about, maybe a third to a half full like this, just like a toilet at your house, and then use it. And then when you're done, you're going to push down all the way on the toilet like that and evacuate everything. And then you can kind of rinse it some more. So just remember, kind of quarter, halfway down to put water in, and then all the way to open it up. If you ever notice that the toilet is not holding water, you know, I'm filling it up right now. Let's say that you fill it up and then you come back 10 minutes and the water is disappeared. It's probably that black little rubber seal that's in the toilet, and it's super easy to replace on this. This is the, I think no, this is the Dometic. The Dometic is really easy. You don't have to take anything apart. You just put some gloves on, reach in there, and it's like it's molded into the bottom there, and basically replace that rubber seal. They're, you know, maybe $10 on Amazon. So just replaced it in January, so you should be good to go for a while. But I would say, in my experience, every 1 to 2 years, it's like the rubber just starts to get hard. It doesn't seal as well, and then you'll notice it. So little side note there. Then you got your bidet on there, your front and rear. And that, it's not like a electronic one where you know, it only works when you sit on it. It doesn't have any kind of technology of sensing someone. So, you know, you just want to make sure you warn your kids not to do that, because it will, I can show you here what it looks like. I won't put it on all the way, but it basically drops down the bidet. You can see it's just kind of dribbling right now. I don't want to turn it on further because it'll squirt us, but it basically just, oh, there it goes, comes down and gets you. Yeah, just like that. What I was trying not to do. All right, anyway, that's what that is. It is hooked up to the red, the hot there. It's got a thermostatic mixing valve, you can see right there. Focus it better, there we go. That you can adjust there. And it's not as precise as I would like it to be, the mixing valve. I think because of the, you know, your campsite might have different temperature of city water coming in. And so it kind of messes with the thermostatic valve in there a little bit. But if you're staying somewhere for a long time, then you shouldn't have to adjust it. It should be, you know, pretty much set. But that is what all that stuff is back there behind the toilet. All right, as far as your black tank, I had an extra tub of this that's unused and unopened. And this is actually, I know it doesn't look very sophisticated, but we've had a lot of full-time RVers recommend this to us when we were starting out, and I was kind of skeptical of it, thinking, well, it just doesn't look as fancy as, you know, dropping a tablet in or something like that. But really, you know, I've tried both the fancier ones and this stuff really does a better job, in my opinion. You don't smell odors at all. Whereas with the tablets, sometimes you get a little whiff, or you'd smell the chemical, whatever they're putting in there. So figured y'all could make use of this. It lasts, you know, a long time, but basically you put anywhere from a scoop to 2 scoops into the tank, you know, when it's emptied each time, and that'll take care of your black tank. So I'll put that in here in your storage here for you to use. It's got a scoop in there as well, so you're all set. Let me point out one thing in here. You see that little clear valve up there? That is your air gap. Your basically, that's the black tank flush. So that runs all the way down through the floor and goes to the front wet bay where you saw that black tank flush. And this is an RV code thing where you have to have an air gap, and it has to be gravity fed. So that's why it's up here in the bathroom, so that there's no possibility of anything from the black tank, you know, coming back through that blue line and then coming back through your coach to the black tank flush. So that's a safety thing. I did replace that air gap valve right there. I think it had a black one when we bought it, and it was making a lot of noise and just didn't sound right to me, so I replaced it, and I got this clear one because you can really see better what's going on. But all that to say, when you run your black tank flush, you're going to hear water in your coach coming through these 2 blue lines. And if you look up in there, you'll of course see water, you know, going through there, and that's normal. So you will hear a little bit of noise, but if it's a lot of noise, you might want to make sure that valve is working properly. All right, so I think that's pretty much everything you need to know in there. Nothing fancy about the operation of the shower. It's pretty normal with the tub, you know, as far as flipping this up to go to the shower mode. And you got your drain down there. What else? You got your shut-off valve here you can use if you want to conserve water. And then, okay, I went ahead and cleaned this thing out. This is kind of siliconed onto the wall, so I figured might as well leave it in there for y'all. And you can put, you know, shampoo and shower gel and stuff in there. So it's all cleaned out, ready to go. And then for your shower door, you just want to make sure that is locked in that latch position before you take off, because otherwise the door is going to be able to go flying and could get busted in transit. So kind of add that to your checklist to make sure that that is shut every time there. All right, what else? Got your skylight up there, your vanity cabinet here. Again, everything's lined. I added these little bungees. It just helps keep everything so that it doesn't fall out when you know, after you're on the road and you come in. So that's what that is. There, got your GFI outlet here. This is going to be your reset for your GFI circuit for, I believe, almost everything. You know, I added one in the wet bay with its own reset, so that one's going to be separate. But this, if you ever are trying to use outlets and you check your breaker box and everything's on and they still don't work, this one might be tripped. So you'll see it, it'll be lit up orange like that, and you just go in here and push it. And you know, sometimes GFI circuits are sensitive, so you might trip it and it'll trip again and then trip it again. So just, you know, repeat it 2 or 3 times and usually you're fine. I haven't encountered any issues otherwise there. Then you got your register down there. We keep this one closed actually because, you know, the furnace is right back behind that wall. And so it's obviously less resistance for water or for air to push through here. So we found before we added these louvers, it would get just too warm in the bathroom, you know, especially if you got the door shut. So that seems to help having those louvers shut, kind of balance everything out. All right, so when you're done using the bathroom, if you're trying to vent it out with the fan on, you just want to remember not to shut off your lights. Because if you shut off your lights, you're going to shut off the fan. And there's no harm done if you do that. You'll just turn it back on and the fan it'll probably, I think it self-retracts. Let me check that and see here. So if we turn it on now, so it's going up, opening, it's on now, so let's pretend like we forget. So obviously that fan's going to stop turning. It's in the open position stuck. So now if we turn on the switch again, yeah, I think it automatically retracts. So it always kind of starts out in the closed position there. All right, so that's that. What else? I think that's about it here in the bathroom. Shut that off. Not a whole lot to show you up here. You probably saw the curtain already. You can store it on either side there. Just helps with light and stuff. And then these lights up here are going to be just your manual push button lights. Came with all the little storage bins there, so that's yours obviously, and they fit nicely in there. And then it came with these teddy bear mattresses. We had our own that we bought and just put them in here. So these were actually have been in storage in plastic bags the whole time. So they should be nice and clean and unused essentially. Then you've got emergency exit on these windows. You probably just want to rehearse with your kids how to use those. You probably want to go out on this side because it sits over the bedroom slide out this window as opposed to that window, because that window is a pretty long way down. So never had to use those, but good to know how to operate them. Then you've got your 12 volt and 120 volt outlets in the back there. And then as far as the air vents go, so we I think we leave one of them about halfway open, I think is what I'm seeing there. But I actually went a step further, and I think the duct on the right there that you're seeing, I think I actually partially closed off that duct from the inside. Like if you take that white trim piece down, you'll find some like Gorilla Tape or something, or duct tape that's closing off that even further, because we found in order to force the air down to the bedroom downstairs, you really, because this is already up in the ceiling and this is right off the air ducts, it was almost putting too much cold air up here in the upper loft and freezing the kids out and then not getting enough in below. So just a side note, one of those sides is you know, been taped up inside the trim piece there. So you can play around with that, but just wanted you to know the history there. Nothing else up here, pretty straightforward. All right, let's go down to the master bedroom, and I actually did not open the slide, so I'll show you that real quick. And then the door, I don't think they planned this when they made it, but it kind of just fits into that little groove and then keeps it open, like where the screen door, so that's kind of nice. Gives you a little more room. All right, so you got separate light switch back here, and then your slide control here is right on the wall. So we're gonna go to the out position. And this slide is a lighter duty, you know, mechanism, because it's just the bed and it's a lot, you know, not as heavy. So this one's all based in the bottom storage, and I'll show you the access panel for that. But that one you just run till it stops, and then the motor shuts off automatically there. Okay. All right, let's see. TV remotes, I'll put those on your bed so they're easy to get to. But this one's just your basic smart TV. I probably need to sign out of our Amazon account, so I'll do that before the transporter comes. But you can connect that to your house Wi-Fi while it's parked there and do stuff on it. And this one, what I really like about it's kind of cool is you can put a actually, yeah, so there, I left it in there, so yeah, y'all can have that. There's a USB memory stick in there, and by having that in the TV, it acts like a DVR. Not as good as a TiVo, but it lets you kind of pause and rewind and fast forward, which is kind of cool, when you're on the road. So so I'll leave that. It's just a USB flash stick, a cheap one, that's in there, but it gives it the ability to store that. So that's that, and then your DVD player is behind there, your Blu-ray player, and you can hook that up. I think you can hook that up to Wi-Fi as well and do stuff with it if you needed to. All right, so pretty self-explanatory on the TV there. We'll shut it off, and I'm going to leave your remotes right on the bed there. Let me talk about the washer dryer real quick here. So it is a condensing ventless washer dryer. It's, I think, a little more popular overseas in Europe, but I opted to do this. You can obviously put a vent outside and go through this wall here. I mean, it's provisioned for that, but I'm kind of real big on building science and stuff and keeping things tight to keep like humidity and bugs and things out of your house. And so for me, cutting a 4-inch hole in the side of an RV, I mean, that's almost like, when you think about the square footage, that's like cutting maybe maybe like a 2 or 3 foot hole in your house, in comparison to the volume. And so I just didn't like that because the flaps are very flimsy on the RV flaps outside. You can't have like a giant, hood on the outside. It has to be real slim. So for me, I thought this is better. Now the sacrifice is, if y'all have read up on ventless, they don't dry as well as a traditional vented one. And when I say not as well, I mean sometimes you'll finish the cycle and your clothes will just be a little bit damp, but in my experience, you just lay them out and 5 minutes later they're dry. So for me, that it's a very small sacrifice just to have a healthier breathing environment and tighter RV to live in. So that's why. So you just have to get used to that. There is a manual for this in the front, I believe, with all the manuals where you can look it up online. But basically, most of the time we're using it on the normal cotton cycle. And anytime you see this little sunshine, that's the dry icon saying it can do both this cycle and a dry cycle at the same time. Otherwise, the ones that don't have that icon, like bulky, you can't do the dry cycle. All right, you can manually do a dry cycle, obviously, but if you want it to do, where you step away and it does everything, then you'll do that. So a lot of times we'll do the normal cotton for us, and that seems to work pretty good. And then you just go over here and add the dry level there. So it does take a little bit longer too, but you're not having to come and pull the clothes from the dryer to the wash, or the washer to the dryer, so, and you can do a custom one up there. I think that's what that is. So yeah, then you got your little positions for your soap. So this is where you put your soap, number 2, and then your number 1 would be like a maybe a bleach, or sometimes we use like the Lysol sanitizer stuff in there. And then this is for your softener. If you'll read up online, a lot of people say that the ventless dryers and they dry better if they have some fabric softener in here. I've always put fabric softener in, but I can't attest to the fact that it has done anything. So y'all can experiment with that. But otherwise, it's pretty much like a regular front loader there. Surprisingly, sometimes you hear about people having these and they just rock the whole RV. But surprisingly, even when this thing is at full spin, I mean, it's not that bad. It's actually sitting up right before where the frame drops down. So surprisingly, it hasn't been so bad. I will point out there is a drip pan. It's in a pan. I put that in there just as a precaution in case, heaven forbid, something went awry mechanically and water started leaking out of the washer dryer. So that drip pan also has a drain that goes out I can't remember the side or the back, but anyway, it has a drain hose that I drained into the underbelly. So basically, it's there for emergencies only. Hopefully never will need to be used, but just like in house, it's a code to have that. I went ahead and put that on the bottom there. So that is there. And then as far as the valves, you can see there's actually a light back here. Let me push on it. There we go. You can see the hot and cold shutoffs are just below here, and then the drain goes right in there. We don't ever mess with the hot and cold shutoffs or turn them off or anything like that. We just leave them on all the time, no problem. So yeah, so that's your washer dryer there. We'll turn it off. And then with like front loaders, you know, when you're done using them, you probably want to leave them open, and then leave your little soap area open so that they dry out. I think if you don't, you can build up mildew and stuff. So I always leave them out when I'm done for a couple hours. All right, and then you got to use, of course, high efficiency detergent, you know, just like a home one. A front loader would require, but nothing special otherwise, just your favorite brand there. Okay, let's see, USB cables. Let me talk about that. So there's a USB outlet on the back here, and I went ahead and got long cables and then kind of tucked them in this nice little shield thing to make it look neat. And then it goes back behind that panel, and then there's one there for her and then another one for him on this side. So hopefully you have USB-C on your phones, because that's what we have, and then you can just plug right into those. So you want to make sure that those are attached to this down here and not to your bed slide, because this part moves when the slide comes in. And so if this is attached up here, it's going to pull that out, and you'll either break the cord or do something. So there's a little bit of storage back there, by the way, that you can put stuff in. All right, let's see, let me lift up the bed and show you that. All right, so when I upgraded the bed, you can imagine this Casper bed weighed quite a bit more than the original one. So I did upgrade the gas props as well to the heaviest, you know, ones I could find. And all that to say, it does hold it up, but you have to kind of get it to a resting point. So I'm going to try to show you. So, and it kind of, I've noticed the temperature can make a difference too. So maybe when it's warmer, there you go. So I want to show you, it does hold the bed up, but not as well as I'd like it to. So anyway, that's that. You do have storage underneath here. This is where the slide mechanism is going to be under there. And I don't know how I ended up with an extra gas prop. Maybe it came in a 3-pack, but I figured you have a spare one in case, you know, something ever fails. And then this is a trim piece that came out of when the washer and dryer, when I put that in, there must have been something I had to trim inside there. And so I figured you have a scrap of that wallboard in case you ever need to match something or do something there. You can put stuff up on that upper shelf where the carpet is. There's no harm done there. Just make sure it doesn't, just make sure it's secured, basically. All right, so that's that. All right, there we go. We'll let that down nice and easy. And then the bedspread came with it, the comforter came with it. So of course that's, you know, yours to keep there. And then I think I mentioned about the sheets, but I'll try to put that in a list somewhere if you're interested in those. We didn't really use them much. All right, let's see. Then on these lights, you just kind of tap once to do it blue, hold down to do it white. So that's kind of how that works on both sides. So a lot better than having puck lights staring in your face there. What else in the bedroom? Let's see. These are the only vents up here that I did not change to louver, because you really want these open all the time. So I just left these open. And it just, you know, the way it's set right now, everything just feels real balanced. All right, so those are your cold AC, and then of course you do have a heat duct down there as well. All right, you got wardrobe over here. They're lined as well. I added a second hanging rod to this one. Believe it or not, they didn't have a hanging rod, but I was able to match it so that they look the same. All right, so that's that. Let's see, nothing fancy about these drawers. They're all lined, but they're all ready to go for you. Okay, so I think we covered just about everything here in the bedroom. What else? Oh, I can tell you about this, the shade. So this shade right here, I don't know if you can see how the side here, the threading has a tendency to want to come undone a little bit, and I just kind of have kept up with trimming the thread. So I need to, before I have the picker, I'll cut this little stray thread. But all that to say, I did contact Forest River when it was under warranty to have a replacement sent, and they sent me one, but they changed suppliers, and they didn't make it as wide. So you can see how this one's nice and wide. It covers, you know, on either side of the window. The new one was like, I think, right up to the edge. So I will include those with you in case you want to, you know, swap it out eventually. But if you wondered why, it's just because I thought, well, it's kind of nice having it wider and covering more of the window there. But they sent me that one, and then there's one on this bedroom, I think it's this side here, that, I think it was this one. it just goes up kind of fast. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. There's an adjustment on all these shades. On one side controls the speed, and the other side controls how high it stops. And for whatever reason, this one, you can adjust it as slow as you want, and it just keeps going up fast like that. So it's just me being picky, but I did email them. They sent me another one. That one I think was the same width, but I figured, you know, it's really not that bad to leave as is. But I will include it for y'all to have there. Okay, so I think we covered everything inside. Let me go out and show you the low point drains. I think that's just about everything. And the roof. I guess I can show you the roof and give you a little bit there. Okay, wow, it feels a lot more humid outside here. All right, so low point drains. Let me get kind of under here so I can show you a little bit better. All right, so there's nothing in the back here. I really like that because this is the drop frame. There's nothing like no drains or tanks or anything in this back section. That's how it should be because you don't want weight. But I've gone in here and added more lag bolts to make sure that this corrugated plastic does not come down. I think one time we were on a road trip and it started sliding out of this kind of trim piece, and you know, maybe a 3-foot section started peeling out. So after that I said I'm just going to go through the whole thing and really secure it to make sure that, you know, there's no chance of that ever happening again. So it's really sealed up. And then you can get that black expanding foam, and I did that and just kind of went through in any little penetration or any little hole where a bug or, you know, a mouse. We've never had a problem with that, but I've heard RVers complain before. So it's all sealed up. So that's what all that is. All right, let's see. That's your landing gear right there, and then the amber light that's under there. You can see it where it comes out there. All right, so that's that. The low point drains and everything are going to be in the front. I'll just show you kind of what the axles look like from the back side there. And then I'll hop down, give you a view up here so you can kind of see what it looks like with the jacks. Hopefully you can make all that out with the jacks down. Okay, and then underneath here, I'll show you a little bit more how it's all nice and tidied up. There is an access panel right here that they give you for, I believe it's just the black tank, the sewer. I've never needed to get in there, but you can see sometimes they use like a Gorilla Tape. Sometimes that wants to come down. So I'll go over that and make sure that it's ready for transit there. But that's just like, it's like a hinged door basically, and it just gives you access there. And that's where your sewer comes out. And the back side of your brakes and your axles and everything up there. All right. Come around this side and I'll show you your drains. Okay. All right, this side is where I did the repair on that 120 volt wire. You can see sort of where it was spliced from here to here. So I just made it longer to feed into this little apparatus to make sure it doesn't get pinched again. All right, so that's that. All right, low point drain. So you'll see they labeled here low point drain. This is actually a overflow for the freshwater tank. So if you're filling the freshwater tank up and you're not paying attention, the water has to go somewhere, so it's going to come out of this side. And then the other side over there, there's two more. One's the freshwater drain. I guess it's got two overflows on both sides, but that's what that is. So the one with the valve on it is your freshwater drain. Just hop over there so you can see. That's going to be your freshwater drain. So if you have water in your fresh tank and you want to drain it, that's where you're going to do it. Just quarter turn that and it'll drain out. And then your actual low point drains on the coach itself, they didn't actually label these, but I'll show you where they are. They are in the back here, right next to your bedroom slide. Whoops, too far. Right before where the frame drops. They are, here they are. So you can see those two white valves there, quarter turn valves. So you got your hot and your cold. So it's kind of right next to the washer dryer basically. So that would be if you're winterizing or you're putting in storage and you want to drain the whole thing, the hot and cold all the way through. That would be where you'd go for that. All right, let's see. Oh, here you go. Let me just show you this. So when you're using the AC, this is normal. to see the condensate drip. So it's got a gutter system, and it's usually going to drip on your driver's side, not your camp side, and that's intentionally. But it's going to drip, and that's just removing all the humidity from your coach. So that's normal. You'll see that sometimes in the front and back, just depending on where the water flows there. It looks like right now it's going all in the front, well, a little bit in the back there too. So that's normal. When it rains, you'll see water on both sides coming back there. All right, let me show you the roof real quick. I just remembered on the way to the roof, I didn't show you the 50 amp connection. So this is your 50 amp power cord. For some reason, only one side of these blue LEDs lights up, but they both work. It just, I think it came that way. I could be wrong, but anyway, don't let that throw you off. I think they just did that to let you know if your power is good or, you know, on or off, basically. So I really rely here on the surge protector. So you can see, kind of, if I get my camera, there we go. You can see all the lights. So that's what it should look like, where you got 3 green lights. You, whenever you get to your campsite, you're gonna plug in this thing, and it's doing something weird with the camera as I move it, but you basically wanna see all 3 lights on at the same time, like that. And so if you see anything other than that, you probably wanna ask for a different campsite, because maybe they've reversed the neutral, or maybe they've got, you know, they don't have a separate 120 on both sides. Sometimes a campsite will be miswired, where they put the same 120 volts to both sides of the leg, and that basically cuts you down from a dual 50 amp to a single 50 amp, and that's not good. So anyway, so you'll get all that, the surge protector, I'll put that in the wet bay as well. And just remember to plug that in always first thing before you connect to your coach to make sure you're good. All right, so getting up here. So I've got a little bit of a ladder here that helps me. This is kind of tight here in storage. Got your backup camera right there, and the antenna, usually I keep it pointed up, and it seems to be about the right angle. You can adjust it if you want to, though, as far as the viewing angle. And then here you've got your cellular booster antenna, and it's kind of on a little bit of a spring, and so that's nice if it ever hit a branch or something. And it's all tie wrapped, you know, neatly running into the conduit. All right, I opted to do conduit just because it's cheap compared to leaving the bare wire, and it just protects it better. You'll notice at each point, anytime you do work on your roof, if you ever screw anything in, you want to use the die core and just really cover it up real good. Make sure you got a good watertight seal. All right, let's see. Let me hop across here. So you got your plumbing vent for the bathroom sink. Then you've got your max air fan for the bathroom. So you can see it already has a cover integrated into it. Your skylight, nice and clean. It's the benefits of keeping it covered like that. We've got a bird that insists on building a nest there, but I think that's an old one because I don't see any bird poop, so that's a good sign. All right, so then there's your breakout box for your cellular booster. Everything kind of goes down into this is basically your wall between the kitchen and the bathroom. And then you've got your plumbing vents for the toilet, the black tank basically, and then your other gray tank in the kitchen. Then you've got your first AC and your second AC. And then you got your TV antenna all the way up in the front here. So you can see what I'm talking about, where you kind of rotate it. You don't have to lower and raise it ever. And then you also have an AM/FM antenna right there, and I kind of point it at an angle so that you're not sticking up so high. I think when I got it, it was just sticking straight up, and it's, you know, it's like a 2.5 foot long antenna. So all right, so as far as maintenance up here, you just want to periodically come and make sure, you know, maybe you were in a tight campsite and a tree branch scraped your roof or something, and there's a slit in the roof. You know, never happened to me, but you never know. So just come up periodically and check it. It's normal to see some wrinkles like here. It just happens from when they installed it, you know, the temperature or whatever stretched it differently. So that's normal, don't be alarmed. But you can see like up here where you see some slightly different colors of die core. So this is fresher in the middle that I've added just as a precaution. So, you know, I'll periodically come up here and just make sure that everything's good running along here to your sides. You know, and check every penetration where the antennas are. Then your ACs are going to have this big foam kind of a gasket almost around the thing. So I've never had issues on an RV with this leaking, but if you did have any issues, you'd want to check that foam gasket, make sure nothing's happened and that it is nice and tight down there. Then your slide boxes you can see on the top here. Some people say it's okay to walk on them. I don't know, I'm a little heavier, 200 pounds, so I don't know that I want to test that theory, but you can come up here and inspect them, and basically that tape that you're seeing is that Eternabond tape that I think I recommended to y'all in another document, to have a roll on hand. That's basically what they use to seal on the slide boxes, and it's super handy because if you ever did rip something accidentally, you know, let's say you had a rip right here in your roof, you could just take a piece of that Eternabond tape and run it right across and you'd be good to go. So kind of nice to have a roll of that on hand. And you can see the condensate from the AC, it just turned on, how it runs down the side there, that's normal. And they did plumb it intentionally on the driver's side. All right, so I think that's about it here on the roof. So I believe that's everything, y'all. If you have any questions about the operation after watching this, just let me know. I'm glad to answer everything, but I'm sure y'all are excited to get it soon. So it's all ready to go, and we'll look forward to hearing the details about the transporter and everything. And as always, reach out if you got any questions. Hey, I just thought of two more things real quick to show you here while I got the camera out. So this is a tank I bought, I think, with our first RV, and I thought I'd be using it more, but it's maybe a 20 to 25 gallon tank, like a gray tank that you can use if you're at a campground that doesn't have hookups, sewer hookups, and maybe your gray tank gets filled up before you're ready to go. So instead of having to move the whole fifth wheel, you can just take this gray tank, hook it up to the, you know, your gray valve, and then dump it, and then take this to the dump station. So I haven't really used this, maybe a couple times, and it's just been sitting. We ended up going with a bigger, maybe a 30 or 40 gallon tank, and then we haven't even used that a whole lot. But all that to say, I thought, hey, this has been sitting here. I don't think I'm going to make use of it. If y'all would like it, you're free to have it, no cost. It's got a little bar on here to tow it with, so you don't even have to, you know, roll it. You can just hook it to your hitch on your truck and then pull it to the dump station. So no pressure, but if you want that, that's there. And then let me show you one other thing. On the other side of the rig, when I first got it, the first or second time we were out, I was pulling out of a campground, and there was like a bollard, one of those little wooden, kind of like a post sticking up, that stuck up about, this high. And as I was turning, it kind of went and just kind of like barely scratched and dented the skirt panel. This is on the opposite side. Anyway, I ordered a replacement, and they sent me the whole, you can see it's like a, I don't know, a 12, 13 foot long piece where the seam is right here. So they sent me the whole thing, which of course I installed and replaced and everything. But then I said, well, hey, I've got, 9-10 feet worth of skirting that's nothing's wrong with it. If anything happened, I've got a spare piece. So I've left it stored here in this closet. You can see it's perfect condition. There's nothing wrong with it. But if y'all want that, I can put that in the RV before the transporter takes it. And that way you have a spare piece of skirting. It's there's nothing behind here, so that's why it's easy to dent if you ever push into anything. But anyway, that's there, no pressure again, but I figured I'd offer it if you are interested.